As the plane soared above an unfamiliar region in China, a passenger gazed out the window and captured a captivating video. A sense of awe and curiosity filled the air. The passenger's camera focused on a peculiar sight, a disc-shaped object about the size of a small car, effortlessly gliding in parallel to the plane, near one of its wings. Perceived the details of the disc distinctly. As seconds passed, an intriguing occurrence took place. The mysterious object seemed to activate a device of some sort, creating a mesmerizing effect. Space and time itself appeared to fold around the disc, as if the laws of physics were being bent to its will. The passenger's video captured the surreal moment in all of its glory, a testament to him, an encounter that defied conventional understanding. As the object sped away from velocity was said to reach a staggering 24,000 miles per hour. As the plane soared above an unfamiliar region in China, a passenger gazed out the window and captured.
Hello everyone, I'm the Benefactor, and this is Beneficence TV, dedicated to providing you solid entertainment while keeping you informed. We are a progressive media outlet with the focus on providing thought-provoking content on forbidden knowledge regarding topics such as Marxism, plasmoids, zero-point energy, vortex-based math, and anti-gravitics. Our aim is to combat the spread of dangerous misinformation and to educate on these intriguing and unconventional areas of study while separating fact from fiction. Join us on our journey of discovery and challenge conventional thinking here on Beneficence TV.
This video was bang on brilliant stuff. I'll give it a shout out in my next video. I've forwarded it to Malcolm to check out too.
The viewers have spoken.
What an amazing documentary. Thanks for producing it.
Never seen this all tied together so well. Gonna share the heck out of it. Bravo and thank you.
Divine Science is officially a hit.
Amazing stuff, very nicely presented. New sub who can't consume your content quick enough. Great video, dude. Keep at it. You are doing the good work.
You did a great job putting this all together. It's a great overview, goes into amazing depth at times, so it's interesting for the larger swath of people. Well played, sir.
Okay, so I didn't sleep last night because I watched this 3 times and binged the rest of the channel. You have fantastic instincts for piecing concepts together. Almost every section was something I was already familiar with in a different context, and this documentary was the thread connecting them all.
Join us on a journey into a place of hidden knowledge. A place where science is stranger than fiction.
Introduction, and I think a lot of people here are here today because of this very thing, and we're about to see it in real life, in real time, with the inventor. Now, I know that there is a lot of rumors around Malcolm and his past, but in my personal experience with Malcolm, he is the kindest, most generous, most friendly, and one of the cleverest people I've ever had the privilege to meet, and I can now say he is a friend and a mentor and a colleague, and I am so proud to welcome him to Cosmic Summit. It's Malcolm Bendall!
What I'm going to do today is just introduce you to basically plasmoids, which are also historically known in the Sanskrit text as, well, this is known as the Vajra here, which is an implosive turbine. We built 10 of these in the world at the moment. And the whole structure of this is male and female, yin and yang. So that's very appropriate for these rooms. The beginning of this adventure was back in 1970 when my high school teacher challenged me about the sacred geometry, and 2 circles with a shared radius is actually the 720 degrees. And so what I downloaded and imagined was if you had a left and a right-hand spiral, which is basically the fundamentals of the universe, and this is what I was trying to get across. And so, and in doing this adventure, all this is about frequency and the resonant frequency of time itself. And to assist in getting the information over, my good colleague Randall is a teacher. Make it very clear I am not. So all my, I attempt to teach, but Randall teaches. So basically,
and I said, well, based on this one image, it looks like these are breaking down ball lightning, and it's the coherent matter that's in the ball lightning that's coming out, and it's able to come back, and it goes to the yang of the yin or the yin of the yang. It's going through, and because it doesn't have necessarily a charge, but it does interact with gases, you get this luminous thing going through the air. So then what I respect about Malcolm, he's a man in the arena. Whether it turns out to do all of the claims, I don't care. Actually, what I care about is, can this clean the gases in a similar way, at least, to what a catalytic converter does, but just using $30 of steel, let's say. in a way that allows it to be attached to a $1,700 rickshaw in India and to clean up the cities in the subcontinent and in Asia. So if we can achieve that, that would be absolutely fantastic and a credit to the work that Malcolm's done. Thanks, Bob.
All right, welcome everybody to the next live stream. Today we'll be going over a few things from the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices. A couple of things that I found interesting and relevant to my own research, and possibly others. I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I know I recently became a father when I made this sweet little coil here. I'm just kidding. But yes, so happy Father's Day, and let's get started with our presentation. If you would like to follow along with our presentation here, I have a link in the description. All right, so we're going to be going over Lenz Law, Stan Meyers water-powered engine, and a couple of other weird things from the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices. Okay. All right. I think my mic is working. All right. So this is my edition of the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices. I'm in the process of trying to upload some of the more relevant data from it because it's 5 volumes and I just don't have time to upload everything, and at least not all at once. So, but again, if you would like to follow along here, if you can't, I know it's going to be trouble for some people to read along, so I put the link in the description so you can follow along. This is the latest edition that I could find. It's the 2017 edition. I found it on Amazon, and I think there might be one more copy if anybody wants to grab that while it's still there. I put the link in the description. So let's just jump right into the first little bit that I found interesting: avoiding Lenz Law. All right. Rand, I don't know. Who this guy? What's whose name? I have seen this guy talk about many times. Oh, are you talking about the highlights from the Cosmic Summit? So the highlights, we had Malcolm Bendall, the inventor of the thunderstorm generator, and then we had Bob Grenier, the independent researcher who founded the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, researching low-energy nuclear reactions in the namesake of Martin Fleischmann, who kind of got suppressed with his discoveries. And those were just a couple of highlights from the Cosmic Summit that I didn't have time to put a lot together, but wanted to give you guys some kind of preview from the summit there. Yeah, Grenier. Grenier's great. Bob is he's kind of a legend in the field of low energy nuclear reaction research. He's been verifying the thunderstorm generator over the past, I think it's been a year. He's been following Malcolm around, bugging him with questions and confronting his theories, but every step of the way, Malcolm has been open. He hasn't shut him out to any of his research personally, as a independent check on his research. So it's all checking out regarding the thunderstorm generator, and again, it's being demoed live right now as we speak in North Carolina at the Cosmic Summit. He has some really, really great live streams. and some really amazing theories regarding ancient knowledge and symbolism and its connection to modern science regarding plasmoids and low energy nuclear reactions. It's all really fascinating. If you're interested, I would suggest going to the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project YouTube channel. I believe I have it linked. It's one of my recommended channels. Oh. There we go. All right, so chapter 16 includes this neat little bit called Avoiding Lenz Law. And I'm just going to read the highlights from it, or I'll just read the whole thing. As you're probably aware, commercial transformers and commercially available electric motors are wound in a symmetrical way which forces them to oppose their own function. A bit like getting a push start with a car whose battery is depleted, but having two people at the front of the car pushing backwards and two people at the back pushing forwards. This is so stupid that it's difficult to believe that anyone would do it. But that is exactly how motors and transformers are designed and built. The bigger the output power, the more output power opposes the input power, meaning that you have a greater and greater input power. You have to have a greater and greater input power in order to get greater output. That's what Lenz Law is all about. It doesn't have to be that way. If you built a non-symmetrical transformer like the Thane-Heinz has done, that effect is absent, and the output power can be 40 times greater than the input power as shown by bench test results. It is not all that easy to build a completely non-symmetrical transformer or motor, but there are other ways to approach the problem. Vladimir Utkin, I probably mispronounced that, has produced the following presentation explaining the ins and outs of an alternative way of dealing with the problem. Some readers may well find it a bit technical in their later stages, but the initial information can be understood by anybody. All right, so here's the introduction. It's well known that orthogonal coils, that is, coils at right angles to each other, do not interact. This is illustrated in Figure 1. So you can see that right here. In the following diagram, the letter U represents voltage, and the letter I represents current, and L stands for a coil of wire. These are the orthogonal coils. That is correct. When you have two coils of the same dimensions, they make the same sine wave, and the identical sine wave will cancel. You need slightly different sine waves, pair or more. Interesting. Yeah, see, this is kind of new to me. I don't even have a oscilloscope yet to analyze waves. So I'm actually really curious and excited to hook the coil up to an oscilloscope and actually visually see the input versus the output on the oscilloscope. That would be pretty interesting to me. And I will have one soon. All right. This means that when there is an oscillating voltage applied to the input coil, L1, there is absolutely no voltage induced in coil 2. They have to be parallel, not perpendicular. It makes no difference if the coils are air core or if they have an iron core. In other words, it can be assumed that the coils are suspended, isolated in air. This is a well-known fact, but it is considered to be of little interest, as it is thought to be a trivial matter. It isn't. If we can make the coils L1 and L2 interact so the real power can be extracted from L2 without that extracted power affecting the input of L1, then that is a very different matter, and nobody would dismiss that as being trivial. This is getting interesting. Mike says, example, coil 1 with a gauge level of 20. and 10 turns. Coil 2, 20 gauge with 20 turns. This will step up the voltage due to having 10 extra. The extra turns will step up the voltage, or if it had fewer turns, it would step down the voltage. Oh, so it halves. So based on the winds that, I knew it reduced the current, but I wasn't sure what the exact equation was for reducing the current. When you step up, step down voltage. So when you step it down, does it increase the current? I'm assuming so. You have gain in potential and loss in amperage. All right, let's continue. That very desirable situation can indeed be brought about as shown in Figure 2 by adding two permanent magnets, M1 and M2, facing each other on an axis of the coil L1, and switch from powering coil L1 with voltage to powering it with current. And for that, we add the capacitor C and operate coil L1 in resonance, where the real magnetic field is in ambient space. Here, the input current is at a minimum, and the magnetic output is at its maximum. We see a load to coil 2 as it is now able to provide output current. Okay, so here's the new diagram. Again, if you're following along or trying to follow along, I did have a link in the description for you to get to the Google Drive. So here's the new setup with the introduction of M1, the magnet, and the magnets M1 and M2, and the oscillator. In Figure 2, the south poles of the magnet face each other, but the arrangement also works if it is altered so that the north poles face each other. I suggest that the problem is solved, that is, the load R receives real power, which has no bearing on the resonance of the input circuit. I will now try to explain how and why this configuration solves the feedback problem. And this is a little bit what like the Rodin coil is doing. Essentially, when you're creating two channels, you're shaping the field geometry in such a way that they kind of amplify. Main explanation. In Figure 1, when two magnets M1 and M2 are added as shown, with the same poles facing each other along the axis of the coil L1, this adds a magnetic field which flows perpendicular to the axis of coil L1 and encompasses some or all of coil L2. This changes everything because the magnetic fluctuations in coil L1 can modify the magnetic field produced by the magnets and causes induced voltage and current in L2. Induced voltage in current and current. Wow. For this, we made the moving... Oh, hold on. We got a Mike chatting in. Let's see what he said. Happy to jump on. Yeah, the load sort of converts voltage to amperage. You can use the amps or not see what's getting wasted into the ether again, or ground heat is waste. Yeah, I'd love you to jump on, but unfortunately I'm not set up, and I'd have to talk to Crypto on what he uses to get multiple people on a live stream like he does. I'm not really sure what platform he's using, but once I have that set up, definitely I'll have people jump on for sure. Yeah, this is all just confirming everything that the Rodin coil is doing too. That the science is all adding up. And this is the latest edition of the Practical Energy Guide, Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices, which means that the independent free thinkers and academics who put this guide together and have been revising it over the years, this is their most accurate one. They've weeded out all of the devices that they put through testing and decided they're not worth looking into. There is a whole chapter on devices still in this guide that goes over devices specifically that aren't promising. But they pretty much rooted out all of the nonsense in this edition of the guide. So all the science is basically mostly legit from what I've seen so far. All right, for this, we made the moving magnetic field by adding alternating current to the coil L1, resulting in alternating magnetic flux passing through coil L2. Current and voltage are induced in the output coil L2. This is shown in slightly simplified illustration figure 3, indicating the movement of the magnetic field depending on whether or not the oscillating power of coil L1 augments or opposes the magnetic field produced by the permanent magnets. So this is the new illustration here. We can see we kind of have the same setup, only kind of in series here. No, I'm sorry, in parallel. Yeah, they don't seem to be connected. But it looks like... Yeah, it looks like looks like an interesting setup that I could definitely try to recreate at some point. And I'm kind of curious if I can. Now I'm thinking maybe I can introduce the Rodin coil somehow in one of these. I'm sure there's a way. I can look. I don't know how to stream to your YouTube channel for you. I use StreamYard. I'm going to host so you can have guests. Oh, okay. Oh, that works. Yeah, just send a link, and my laptop is a little slow. It's kind of crappy, but we can go over this with some of your input. It'd be very valuable. You have my email, right? beneficencetv@gmail.com. I'll go on here and check it in a minute. Let me close that down. Oh, I found it. Yeah, I got you. So we're getting Mike in here real quick. Give us a second. Bear with us. Yeah, like I said, my computer is really slow, so you're going to have to give it a minute. So it won't let me enable my mic because I don't know why. I'm assuming because either it's really slow and hanging up or because Streamlabs is already using it. But I am in the lobby. Oh no, there we go. Sorry, it's just really slow. I thought we had a driver issue because Streamlabs is using the mic at the same time, but turns out my computer is just really slow, so just bear with me. Can you hear me? So I'm gonna leave my cam off just so it's not gonna overload my system even more. Is it not picking up in this? Oh, it's delayed. Oh, okay. So as long as it's working, yeah. Well, let me check, cause oh, no, we can do it. Okay, say something.
Testing.
Yep. Okay, it's coming through. You're coming through.
Let me verify that. You sure? On your end?
Yeah. Yeah, because I got my desktop audio and everything that's coming into my headphones is being broadcast into the Streamlabs.
Give me 1 second. Let me check.
Yeah, it might have like a 5 or 10-second delay or something like that.
Sets testing 1 2. It's testing 1 2. Testing.
Yeah, I can hear you on my end. Like I got my stream going on my phone.
You good now?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So
yeah,
this is
keep
Mike.
going with your
This
the
is
quote.
Mike, everybody.
Hello, guys. I'm Mike does. I work on pulse motors and mainly pulse motors, which involves drive coils and rotor magnets.
So this is right up your
Uh,
alley.
yeah, I started electronics in 1992. Did a 2-year at ITT Technical Institute.
Oh, okay.
Got out
I
of
went to
there.
ITT.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Which one where were you at? What state?
I went to one in Michigan, and then I went to one in West Palm. But I didn't graduate. They got
Okay.
shut down.
Yeah. Why? What happened?
No, well,
I remember, right? ITT, the school stopped, right? It stopped. They stopped teaching
yeah, they got
or
sued.
whatever. Sued?
Yeah, something about fraudulent loans or something. I don't know. Everybody's dealing with fraudulent loans nowadays.
Oh man. So I went there, then got out, did some, low voltage communications work for a couple years, and then, I was already doing high voltage before I went to the ITT in '92. I was doing, high voltage commercial and residential systems, and that's pretty much my basic background revolving around energy and electricity.
So you, of all people, should
recent-
know how much heat and energy waste transformers put out, huh?
They'll heat up when, let's see, when you overrun them, when you put too much, when the demand is too high, and I guess they heat up mainly because the supply is not sufficient. Because if it was, the signal would not be get weak and distorted and then create heat,
So it's a problem on the input side.
I think so, because well, it could also be the transformer windings are too thin. They're not gauge is not thick enough to
Right.
handle the amps.
Oh, that makes sense too.
But when you know the gauge that's in there, and like that's pretty much the case. The transformer windings, the gauge is not thick enough to handle the source, what the source can offer. And then when the load is over demanding, they have no way of, stopping people from putting too many amps onto their systems. Like you're allowed to put one 200 amp breaker panel per leg on the phase or on the pole for your house, a certain amount of amps.
Yeah, that's a considerable amount of power too.
Right, but if somebody starts putting sub panels and allowing themselves more places to plug in and draw power, then you start, pulling too much amps through the transformer, and it heats up because the gauge on it is not thick enough on the windings. Otherwise, it would be able to handle. If the gauge was thick enough to handle more load than the supply can offer, then they would never heat up. None of them, no matter how much load you put, because the supply would not have. If you try to create more load than the supply has to offer, let's say you wanted the supply has 10 units to offer you as a load, and you ask for 15, you're only going to get 10, as long as the system is gauged to handle 10 or a little bit more. It's not going to heat up.
So what you're saying is pretty much the if you have too small.
Even though what I'm saying is, even though you're asking for the 15, it's not there to be had, so it's not going to get transmitted. And
right. So if you have too small of a gauge for your load, then it's like pushing a golf ball through a garden hose.
Right, especially when you ask for more energy through it, which you can do by plugging in more lights and devices.
Right, and how do you? I mean, they can somewhat regulate that, but I mean, they can't be everywhere at once. Like if somebody's putting an overload on the system, is there any way for them to
Right,
actually...
no, that's why they allow one main panel at 200 amps, and yeah. So if you put a sub panel, which is a smaller panel attached to the main panel, and let's say you only had a 150 amp panel, but your line is sufficient for 200 amps. I mean, your tap off the transformer can give you 200 amps. That's it. So if you ask for more than that, and you have a system that can handle the load on your side, such as an extra sub panel and more plugs and everything properly wired and no shorts, and you plug a bunch of stuff in, you're going to ask for more than your line on the grid can handle. But the grid has more than the line going to your house can handle, is what I'm saying.
Okay, now I get it. No, that does make sense. That's probably why sometimes we get brownouts.
Right. So that's why they have all those codes. You know, this house can, or this transformer on this pole, it has whatever 8 taps and 1 neutral, or 1 return. You know, common they call it, and they have 8 outputs, which is like whatever 3 outputs, whatever 3 positive outputs and 1 negative. All the positives go to the negative, no matter how many positives you have. And they just, let's say they got 3 positives at gauge 10, they make the negative, 3 times the thickness of a gauge 10, which is, I don't know, gauge 4 or 2 or something. So that, if you fully loaded all the positives, the output, the return can handle all that amperage. So that's kind of how that system works. And so each leg of the 3 is, let's say 200 amps each leg. So the pole can handle 600 amps or whatever. But your house is only allowed to take 200. But if you start putting, more than a 200 amp panel, and you add a 50 amp panel to that 200 amp panel, now you have a 250 amp load on a 200 amp channel to the grid. And that means you're going to blow the transformer if you do ask for 250 amps.
Right.
Even if everything's wired up correctly inside your house, you're just asking for more than that line can handle.
So regarding this chapter that I'm reading in the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices, what's your input so far on this chapter on the avoiding Lenz Law?
Okay. There's a lot of ways to do it. The best way, the more load you create, it's hard to say. Is that, the motors speed up as you ask for more load. Is that going to, is the length going up at the same time?
No, that's something that I didn't account for too, and I made note of in my previous stream. Is there's a new set of variables you have to account for when you actually have over unity, because you have more output on your system than input, and that's unconventional for normal systems don't expect that, so you have to account for that extra output.
The extra output where again?
So like if you have a cheap, well, let's take my system for example. I wasn't accounting for the extra output of the system it was putting out and putting back into the stereo receiver, shutting it down. So I wasn't aware.
You're getting extra milliamps, and your volts are staying the same on the in and the out?
It's the opposite. So the volts are doubling, and the milliamps seems to increase a little bit at certain frequencies.
And the output?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
that's my ongoing theory.
3 volts going in.
Yeah,
right?
so say you have 3 volts going on the input, and I don't know, like
and your coil's resistance is what? Do you know?
I believe it's like 9 ohms, something around.
I know
there.
It's 9 ohms. It's 9 ohms because you said you were drawing 200 something milliamps. What was it?
Right. Yeah. No, you did the math. So if you did the math,
so your coil is drawing exactly what it's going to draw. It's not going to draw any more than that. But you're loading the coil on the output, and you're saying you're able to load a few more milliamps with a little bit more voltage.
Right. Yeah. It seems to do a 1-to-2 ratio on the voltage.
Yeah. That's interesting because you Keshi coils.
I'm sorry, come again. You cut out.
Dr. Kesh, can you hear me? You got me? You hear me?
I could hear you.
Oh. Okay. Have you heard of Dr. Keshi, the Keshi coils?
No, I haven't.
Okay, he's a nuclear physicist from Iran who was working on energy, solid state energy devices using nanocarbon coating the coils and stuff. So what I want to say about that is that device does the same thing. It you know, you get a little bit more watts on the output. Okay, so I bought one pre-made, wired it up, and plugged it in, and bought 2 watt meters. I made a video back then when I did it, and I showed the 2 watt meters, you know, the in and the out, and I was getting like about 15 watts out extra on the output through the device.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know it's kind of strange. I think it's got to do with the coils picking up like antenna, you know, like as you're sending energy through the coil in one direction. Let's say it's going in one direction for argument's sake, because to think in 2 directions is very difficult.
Right. No, let's do that. Okay, continue.
You can think in vibrations. Let's say you're vibrating the coil with your potential source to provide the load on the other end, and that creates the vibration through the coil. The source and the load, they work together to create the vibration, right? In the line, right?
Right.
So that's vibrating at a certain signal or whatever, and it just seems to tend to vibrate to appropriate signals, in my opinion, to pick up etheric, you know, free electrons that are resting around the device. The
You might be absolutely right on that. Just because
it's like a river flowing, you know, and then you pick up some air into the water, you know, kind of thing.
Right. Well, these coils, the Rodin coils, specifically the ones that Daniel Nunes made, they are referred to as pickup coils. So, and he did say himself that they're...
Is that the PoE coil you're talking about?
Yeah, the PoE coil. They're antennas, is what he said. You know,
right, right. They definitely are. All coils are. Even we are antennas because we are.
And that makes sense.
You know, liquid, like water is also okay. Water, it will absorb radiation better than anything. So I mean that's nuclear radiation too, you know. So all radiation is energy, you know. There's all kinds of radiation. Water is the best for that. So that's, you know, I don't know. I mean, making water capacitors is very appealing in that respect.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of a water capacitor yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've never built one. I just keep thinking about it every time I think about something in this arena, because I use regular capacitors now, and I'm thinking I should just use water to make my capacitance values instead. And you know, and I just think, you know, using like these things like nanocarbon and on the copper, it's like carbon. It's carbon. Carbon has a tetrahedron shape, or it looks like a cone or a spiral. You know, that's what I heard. So these shapes are like antennas for like energetic signals coming from the entire, you know, universe and cosmos.
Right.
They're everywhere. The radiation is everywhere.
Yeah, the aether superfluid, or
the sun focuses it all. You know, the sun focuses all the radiation out there. And,
that's
you know,
interesting that you say that, because that's a focal point in the plasmoid unification model. That the sun category.
Yeah, I've heard of. You know that model.
Oh yeah.
You know what that is, huh?
Mm-hmm. I'm a
That's
student
crazy.
of Malcolm
You really
Bendel.
know what that is?
Yeah, no, I just watched Malcolm Bendel's.
Is that who created that model? Malcolm Bendel?
So he didn't.
I mean, I've heard of it.
He didn't create it, but he did develop it, and he pretty much almost.
Let me just confirm we're talking about the same thing real quick. It's the sun going like moving like a sine wave to get you your sunset and your sunrise, and then you're saying they're saying that it's a focal point of of a scalar wave where the middle of the wave is where the light is created, where the focus is created.
So we don't know too much about Malcolm Bendel's version of the plasmoid unification model.
Is that the same thing I'm on? Are we on the same
but
page on that thing?
we might not be referring to the same thing. I'll put it up on the screen if you can see it.
I mean, it's a plasma field. It moves like a sine wave, like up and down, right? It's a plasma field, and
So-
in the center point of the emission, where so that means there's a.
Can you see the graph
yeah,
on the live stream?
Let's see here. Yes.
So this is Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model. It's got 4 categories. It's basically a unified field theory that calculates the resonant frequencies of everything in the universe. As you can see, we have all the elements around the edge of this sphere here, and it's got all the calculations that you would need.
You
all
just
the
got
numbers,
muted.
all the numbers you would need to calculate anything, like the resonant frequency of an element or even a color. So
Is that supposed to be the sun in the center?
So yeah, that's our solar system right here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit.
And in the center is the sun? Or is
Yeah,
that
the sun and the moon and the earth, and it's all relationships between this, the celestial bodies. But it also mimics how atoms work at the same time.
He calls it a plasmoid.
Yeah, a plasmoid, and he did say that elements form in the shape of plasmoids, like a torus shape. And, like we visualize molecules gathering together in specific shapes.
Right.
And
right. And in a plasma wave, the plasma has a wave form. Let's keep that in mind, okay?
Right.
It has It has a wave shape. It has a shape. The wave. You can't see it, but it's probably a sine wave, right?
I'm assuming so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know. Could you see this torus on the screen?
Yeah.
So
you see the graph.
This is not the Nappen nodes of the Fibonacci sequence, and this has the placement of all the elements on it. So you can see the relationship of everything. It's insane. Like, I don't fully understand it myself. I'm still studying it, and Malcolm still has to release a book that goes into more detail.
Right.
Right, but based on this model, he came out with a thunderstorm generator. The practical application of this was
really,
and the thunderstorm turbine, and it's being demoed right now in North Carolina.
That's supposed to make rain and all that, or whatever.
No, so what it does is it's a retrofit that fits on any gas or diesel engine, and it uses counter-rotating vortexes, the same way that nature utilizes them to produce energy. And these plasmoid clusters can disassociate the carbon into the base components of hydrogen and oxygen, and it shoots out the oxygen instead of toxins, and then it feeds the hydrogen back into the system for efficiency. It's insane.
So it just connects to a standard engine or whatever.
Yeah, so it's being demoed right now on like some Toyota generator. But like there are other people because
it consumes the fuel or it consumes water.
Yeah, it's so based on Malcolm, the system won't work on hydrogen alone. Like I'm sure you can adapt it to work on hydrogen alone, but it's meant to be a stepping stone, like a retrofit that can just be retrofit and clean up the air a little bit and add a little more efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And he open sourced everything. You can go on his website and build one yourself.
So is it conditioning the fuel or something, or is it just converting the water and making like a fuel cell?
Let me put up a diagram real quick, and I'll explain it, the breakdown process. Because if you haven't heard, this is really interesting to me, and it's honestly it's.
I mean, if you send a plasma field over the fuel line, I'm sure you're going to have some interesting effects.
It's a stepping stone to a new industrial revolution, but there's a little more to it than that.
Right. I mean, I got to look more into it. I haven't been following this particular topic. I'm rusty on.
No, it's okay. This is all new to a lot of people. That's why I put out videos, and if you watch Divine Science, you'll get a good understanding of the thunderstorm generator and how it works. This is basically the diagram. it all starts with the ionization chamber. So it utilizes the vacuum and stroke power of phases of the engine to do what's necessary with this retrofit, if this thing will load. Okay, so right here we have the air inlet. It's the pre-ionization chamber. It's made to imprint a specific frequency.
Can you maximize that screen on your channel?
Yeah, let me maximize this. Sorry, bear with me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting better and better looking at basic schematics and kind of telling what they're doing, you know.
Right, and this is honestly, this isn't that difficult.
Circuits.
This isn't that difficult to make if you're like a garage engineer or
zoom
somebody like
into
you.
that. Carbon emissions.
I'm trying to. There we go. All right.
It's taking the emissions from the tailpipe and
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
So
sound
it's doing a couple.
emissions.
Yeah, it's doing a couple things. So let me explain the process. There's an air inlet for the pre-ionization chamber right here, and it takes air in and it ionizes it or pre-ionizes it with a specific frequency of UV lights, just standard off.
What's
the
that
shelf
tank on the
units.
right? Is it?
This is the plasmoid
you
generator.
go.
So
Okay.
the air goes into the generator, and this has got just basic water with like some steel wool
Okay.
to help catalyze the bubbles. So what it's doing is you're taking the power stroke, I believe it's a power stroke
Compressed
phase.
air?
Yeah, and you're compressing it and cavitating the bubbles. And the steel wool.
There's water in there?
Yeah, there's water in there. So the steel wool is in there to ensure that the bubbles are small enough.
Oh, to make the bubbles, right. Okay.
Right, and they have to be small enough because when they collapse, they have to be symmetrical, and that forms a plasmoid. And then
All
that
right.
gets
What's
fed.
the plasmoid generator? How's it made? What's the parts in there?
So the plasmoid generator is basically a sphere with two spheres or a single sphere with a tube at either end. But it's also a sphere within a sphere. So inside these spheres, you'll see another sphere.
Stainless steel tubes, kind of like the Joe cell.
Yeah. So,
So it's sort of like the Joe cell thing.
I believe so, but it's a little bit different than the Geet.
And the tubes are polarized to the battery, or
no. The tubes are just there to separate the charges in the air. So you have hot exhaust air going in one way, spinning one vortex, and then you have the cold plasmoid infused air going in another way, spinning in another direction. But they're not actually touching.
That's similar. That's similar to the Geet engine.
It is, but the main difference is the Geet is extremely hard to get to replicate. There's a lot of tight variables there.
I thought it looked easy to replicate.
According to my
Easier
sources,
than most things.
According to my sources, it's extremely hard, and there's a difference between.
It's just two pipes, one inside the other, and you just channel the air in two directions, two opposite directions.
Right. It's using some of the same principles, but it's not the same system.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Channeling the air in two directions. That's.
It's what nature does
specific.
it's what nature does. Like the most brilliant designs are
Right, you're right.
mimicking nature.
The thermal vents.
Right, exactly. And you wonder, like, the thunderclap has so much energy behind it. How the heck is nature, just taking all this energy out of nowhere?
That's a good idea for creating energy.
Yeah. And Malcolm Bendel has been
channeling
working on
hot and
this for
cold air
like
like
50
that.
years. He's been working on this. So it's awesome that it's finally getting out, and people actually built their own and took it to the conference, and they work. It's so
funny, when you look at these devices, how fundamental and basic the concept is. You should have
simple.
thought of it.
Like we were just talking about on my stream yesterday. There was a guy who had a device that just based on
At
the
first
geometry.
it looks complicated.
You said what?
But when you just get down to the basics of it, it's a concept.
Right.
At first, these devices, they look complicated and hard to understand, but when you do understand one or two of them, you see it's a fundamental concept of channeling in two directions, opposing
Geometry.
directions.
Yeah, it's based on geometry and angles, and the angle of introduction of the plasmoids
Creating
is vital, because that gives the plasmoids an angle to form the clusters. If they're not introduced at a specific angle, which is 51.84 degrees.
the clusters. When you say that, I think you're referring to the eddy clusters.
Ken Shoulders
Eddy current
clusters. There's many names for them. Exotic vacuum
Yeah,
objects.
so when you channel in two directions, it's like sticking the paddle in the river with your canoe. You're digging in there. You're creating those swirls intentionally.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, I like that.
You know, the efficient you are at doing it, or your generator is, the better it's going to make power. So yeah, I mean, that's a great way. The heat engine is definitely, I don't see it not improving fuel efficiency. I see it definitely. If you can send the gasoline through one chamber and out the other, the other direction, you'd be polarizing the gasoline as well.
Right, and according to Malcolm, explosive technology causes, I believe it's a negative charge, and that's bad. I could be mistaken. It might be opposite. It might be the positive charge.
Yeah, it depends, right? Gasoline may have to be charged a certain way. You know, everything is.
Oh, hey, we got somebody else in here. How you doing?
Hi, how are you guys?
I'm good.
Hi, Lulu.
Oh, we got more people now. Cool.
Can you put it on the screen? Because you were explaining something, but nobody could see it.
Oh, the
go to the link
thunderstorm
in the
generator?
Description. That's his.
Yeah.
You gotta have
yeah,
two
give me a
windows
second,
open.
and I'll try to get this this other tab set up.
But,
let's see.
Yeah.
You know, the other day I was thinking about the EVOs, the exotic vacuum objects. And
is that what that means?
Yeah. What do you think these things are? Like the EVOs?
So they're, according to Malcolm Bendel and a lot of different people who have been researching this, they're just plasmoids. They're structured bits of plasma, and they can form in different shapes and take on different shapes and clusters, which tend to look like wheels within wheels. When I bring up this in a minute, I'll show you.
Right, one wheel spinning one way and the other wheel spinning the other.
And these things they come out of different materials based on the the frequency currency that is applied to them, right?
Yeah, so they can be imprinted with specific frequencies. I don't know why this isn't working. And based on
when
that,
you think about all the frequencies that are being created in the cosmos right now, they're all different, and they're all going to coalesce into something somewhere.
Right.
And maybe that's what they're creating, these plasmoids. You know, each different frequency is different, so that particular frequency is going to create. What'd you call it?
There we go.
EVOs.
EVO.
There we go. Okay,
exotic
sorry about
vacuum
that.
object.
So here we have
vacuum.
the diagram of the thunderstorm generator and the basic components of it. I'm going to show you what the plasmoid looks like as well.
Yeah, on his channel, let me put the link. You gotta open up this stream on YouTube to see the screen. Hold on. You can see the link in the private chat. Where is it? There it is.
Okay, got it. Let me click on it just for it, and then I'll come back if I get cut off, just so I can have that.
Okay, so this is a plasmoid cluster. So you can see it's forming a wheel, but there are wheels within the wheel.
I don't know why we can't still see it.
It looks like a coil.
Oh, it's in the link. Okay, got it.
No, it's not on the screen. Hold on, let me see.
That's a picture taken?
I believe so. I'm not positive. Let me see what the source is, but I believe this is graphic illustration of what it is, but
Computer generated.
I think so. But honestly, it looks like it might be real.
Have you seen the Hutchison effect?
Yes, I have been studying the Hutchison effect for a while. And I think, and a lot of other people do think that it has something to do with plasmoid clusters, Ken Schuller's clusters.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so, just it feels like any object has a soul of its own, and then whenever too much energy is being blasted at it, that plasmoid kind of breaks free out of whatever material.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that the only thing kind of makes sense, and that's what it is.
Well, that does make sense because mainstream science still can't explain fully the phenomenon of static electricity, but plasmoids, fill that gap in explanation.
Potentials.
Medium. Yeah, exactly. It's just like your Bedini, how the flyback thing, one gives the energy to the other and then flops
Because
it
when you
back
look
and
at
forth,
static, it almost seems like it's pulsing. I mean, it's like buzzing. There's a pulse, a high-speed pulse. I would think static electricity is being generated by some type of radiative frequency that just creating that frequency. It's static. Is it but it's not moving or something?
My main question is, why does it happen sometimes and not other times?
Well, it's there. Like you take the hot sheet out of the dryer and the two layers are touching. Just because you didn't separate it doesn't mean the energy's not there.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Are you talking about kinetic energy?
Just because you didn't see the sparks doesn't mean they're not there.
No, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Just because you didn't see it, that doesn't mean they're not there. For sure.
It's there, but you broke the bond of the two potentials of the sheet.
So if you guys are interested in learning more about the thunderstorm generator, the plasmoid unification model, which it's based off of, and vortex math, I have a documentary called Divine Science. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's very informative, and it's aimed toward mostly a general audience. So it goes into detail, but it also kind of explains things in a way that, most people can understand them. It's on my channel if you are interested in watching that at some point. I highly recommend it.
I'll check it out.
All right.
So here you got the two coils. One is vertical, horizontal. The other is vertical. They don't interfere. That's an interesting concept there. I don't know how to understand that, but they don't. It's true. They don't interfere because they're not like parallel. I know when you run two wires in parallel and run high voltage through them, if it's the same, it's coming from the same source, it's not a problem. But if you throw a communication line right next to that high voltage line in parallel, you're not going to get any data through your communication line. It totally interferes.
Wow. Yeah. No. That
here you have them.
That does seem to be a problem with mainstream.
Wouldn't it create an electrostatic resonance energy when the interference between the lines?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Totally. But it's because they're parallel. They're running along each other side by side. But if you cross directly over, there's no interference between the data and the high voltage. It doesn't cause a problem at all.
So there's no data leaks. There wouldn't be any data leaks between the lines.
Right. So you can drop a data line over a high voltage line going in a cross fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no problem doing that. But if you lay them side by side for more than a couple feet, like parallel with each other,
That's
And
funny. You would think the
Interesting.
other way around. When they cross, it would cause interference, not when they're parallel.
right,
Yeah. Yeah, that is
right.
funny.
No interference. We kind of like this image here with the two coils. You know, there's no
I can't
interference.
see anything on screen. Like all I see is.
So if you're having trouble seeing it, I do have a link
Go in
the
the private chat,
description.
Lulu. Click on that link.
Yeah, but then I'll get cut off.
It'll open another window.
Oh, but then I'll get a cut off from you guys.
Oh well, I can just
my-
switch to the other. I can
your
just switch
phone?
to the other screen. It's no problem. Let me.
You know, I try to add your channel as a destination, but I don't have your login and password, so I can't. Yeah, I have StreamYard account, but I can add, you know, destinations if I have the password. But yeah, not saying I need your password, but just letting you know that's how that works with StreamYard. So
Is it me? Are you talking to me?
I was telling Ben I was
Oh,
trying
okay.
to stream his channel without, you know, through the StreamYard here.
Yeah, no. When I get off stream today, I don't know if you want to send me your email or something. We'll set that up, and because I'm kind of stupid when it comes to this stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it. You're using YouTube to stream, so you can't have more
Streamlabs.
than. You can't create a you know a non-administrative password for me to add you as a destination in my StreamYard account. Not that I know of.
I mean,
you don't want to give out your admin password to anyone.
Right, but the thing is, I usually multi-stream. I can't afford it right now, but at some point in the near future, I will start multi-streaming to multiple platforms. So,
yeah, no, I got the StreamYard was like $250 for a whole year, so I just bought it.
That's
I wanted to make a bunch of it.
How many people could you have on StreamYard at once?
I think it's 20. I'm not sure.
So I'm gonna read a little bit, and then we're gonna pause, and then I'm gonna get you guys input, and then we'll go through some of this. I have not just stuff on Lenz Law. I have stuff to go over regarding Stan Meyers' water-powered engine and some other weird phenomenon that I found in the practical guide to free energy devices. So let's continue with this.
You know what? Never mind. I'm going to add this screen into in the StreamYard. What am I thinking here? Hold on a second.
Okay.
I can do it right here. I'm such an idiot. You see, this is how this free energy stuff is. It's simple, but we don't get it because we're like, you know,
you're thinking
slow
about it too
to
hard.
figure it out. Maybe.
No, sometimes that's my problem. I think about things too hard, and I'm like, okay, I need to simplify my philosophy a little bit in order to get to the answer. It's like, what's that? There's a man, okay, and the boss gets it in his mind that this employee is stealing from the boss. So every day he keeps an eye on the man going out with his wheelbarrow, taking his stuff out from work. But he never catches him stealing anything. Every day he does the same thing. He's stealing wheelbarrows. Nobody noticed. You're thinking about, sometimes you think about things too much or too complicated. So sometimes simplifying things, at least in my opinion, from my experience, helps a little bit.
There.
I mean, at the end of the day, this whole
See it now, Lulu?
field of, yes, I do. I see it. I mean, at the end of the day, this whole field of science is the simplest form of
he does the same thing. Yeah.
This
He's
is what it
stealing
is.
wheelbarrows. Nobody.
All right, I got you full screened on my channel here, Ben. Go ahead with your
You're thinking about, sometimes you think
presentation.
about things too much, or I can hear the feedback from it. So sometimes mute it real quick. Things, at least
Just
in my
mute that
opinion,
channel.
from my experience,
How do I mute
helps
that?
a little bit. Let's see.
There.
I mean, at the end of the day, this whole
See it now, Lulu?
field of, yes, I do. I see it. I mean, at the
What's
end of the
up,
day,
Daniel?
this whole field of science is the simplest form
He
of
does the same thing. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
You know,
Oh, it's
So I can't figure out how to mute that. I'm getting feedback.
can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you.
Okay. What you were saying earlier, like thinking of the simplest ways of, the obvious, this whole field of science is the simplest form of science. It's the atomic structures, and those are the tiniest things that, are the building blocks to
Oh,
the
it's
universe. So it is, we are discussing the
So I can't
simplest,
figure out how to mute that. I'm getting feedback.
can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Okay. I don't know what's going on here, but there's like a relay.
I'm not hearing any
What you
echo.
were saying earlier, like,
Hello? Can you hear me?
He's trying to join and
I think I fixed it.
it's not letting him join or something.
No, my computer's just really slow. So
There you go.
can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, okay.
We're here.
Yeah, I fixed it. I fixed the problem. So there was a loop back.
It's not
yes. So I knew it. There was a relay because I could hear myself, like,
slow. Oh no, it's still going on. Oh, it's because it's coming out of the StreamYards. Are you?
How about now? I just muted it.
Oh, you did. Okay. All right. Now we're good. All right. Sorry about that.
No, that's what it was. Okay. I was sharing your live stream on this stream, and I didn't have it muted.
It's okay. No, I
So
also
go ahead.
had a loop back in my ear too for a setting that I had to adjust in Streamlabs. But anyways, you were saying something about this unified form of science should be the simplest form.
If everybody's going to be able to figure it out and do it on their own without going through,
No. Yeah.
generations of
But
research.
the general concept and something that I subscribe to wholeheartedly is that there's no point in having the secrets to the universe if they can only be understood by, like a few people, right? If the secrets of the universe are so complicated that most people can't really understand them, then it's not worth it.
Lulu dropped out. It's her phone probably. Yeah, no, I mean, the secrets to the universe are kept secret. I don't hear you no more, Ben. Your mic.
okay.
Oh, there we go.
Now, here you guys.
No, I'm just trying to make
No,
sure
I hear you.
everything's coming through because again, my system's slow and it's supposed to be picking up the audio, sound wave or whatever. You can see the little bar moving, but sometimes it doesn't move, and I'm like, oh, is it?
Yeah, I was wondering what that was. It was kind of cool. It sounded like an audio analyzer,
Yeah. So I need to get my regular desktop up and running. I have a really, really good workstation that is currently out of operation, but it will be soon. We'll get you running again.
So yeah, I mean, the secrets are not really in. It's not, things are written, you know, like I was listening to this, this younger guy who's been researching Egypt big time and spends a lot of time there. I think he's living there now. And he's created this channel called landofchem.com.
Mhm.
So what he was saying was the Egyptians knew chemistry because they had the King Amun. Have you heard of that name before?
Amun, yes.
I
Amun.
haven't.
Okay, have you heard of the word, do you know the word, ammonia?
Yes.
Yes.
Ammonia?
Yes.
And you know ammonia is created from shit? And you know the beetle, the scarab is a beetle. It's a dung beetle. It collects dung. So what this guy was saying is that these ancient writings are written in a way where only chemists would understand it.
The scarab, you're right. The scarab beetle. The Egyptian scarab, yeah.
They pick up shit and roll it. I got beetles all over my yard because I got cats in the yard shitting. These beetles have come to my house, bro.
Put them beetles to work.
I'm not kidding. I've had these beetles before, but now I got them in great numbers. Let me just tell you. I mean, every year the beetles would come around. These colorful beetles. You know what I'm talking about? This beetle with all the
You know,
and-
you're talking about beetles. There are beetles that have a metallic, shiny coat.
Yeah, like
They're
the blue ones,
raised,
right?
No, the gold. There's gold ones.
there you go.
Like, literally gold ones, like golden ones.
Mhm.
But I
gold
read
too,
about
right.
it that the White House
Amazing.
raises these golden beetles. Okay, and if you want a sample, you have to write the White House in order for them to send you these beetles, either to populate or to use for experiments. But they have a small farm that they raise these golden
You're in and out
beetles.
with your mic, Ben.
Is this anything to do? Because I know there was this one guy with a
read about
levitation
it.
device, supposedly, that operated off of insect wings, like beetle wings.
I believe
Yes, that's
you know,
Grubenikov.
yeah.
Yes, that's Grubenikov, Russian. I think he's Russian. So he aligned the wings together, and they have, you know, they're curved. They're curved. They have a curved.
Right, so it all goes back to geometry. It all goes back to geometry. And
Yes, I definitely think so.
not just any geometry.
Because the
fractal
curve
sacred
is,
geometry.
you know, I think these signals are wrapping around the curve. You know, these free signals.
I mean, think of it as if they have like miniature solar panels on their wings. It's like that, you know.
No,
And
that makes sense.
they're
Right,
harnessing.
photons are also, you know, spiraling at you. No? You know, from the sun, they spiral or vibrate.
Yeah,
you know.
so
Wave-
nothing's
the
going to
wave
travel in
function.
a straight line. So yeah, it's probably some kind of coil.
Well, we need the heat you feel is like a vibration. When the sun hits your skin, there's some type of vibration happening that creates the heat. Of course, you don't have any heat in between your skin and the actual sun.
Right, it's the
Or do you?
reaction.
I mean,
No, that
you know.
that does make a lot of sense too. So I think now is a good time to pick up where we left off with the Lenz Law. If you would like to join me, we have a link in the description. If you'd like to follow along, sometimes it's hard to see these things on live stream. So we were just talking about reversing Lenz Law with this diagram, putting these coils in, it looks like parallel to each other. The resonance coil L1 is used to create an oscillating magnetic field.
Maximize that diagram, Ben. The one you're looking at.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, I can't zoom in on it. I need glasses.
There we go. But that moving field can also be created using permanent magnets, introducing them into the gap between two opposingly facing magnets through the physical movement of those extra magnets as shown in figure 4. The moving magnets would be on a rotor, and the poles of the rotor magnets would alternate north-south, north-south. So here we have a new diagram. It says explanation of the principles through the use of permanent magnets. All right, and it's possible errors of interpretation. The following errors are possible in the interpretation of the described interactions. And I like this because it leaves room for the theory to develop, and it's not saying this is exactly what's happening, but this is, our theory, and it could be wrong. Harnessing resonant energy to the load, harnessing the magnetic field energy to the load. Neither interpretation is true. The basic principle shown in the energy resonate system cannot be trapped because doing that would destroy the resonance itself. What do you guys have to think about that?
Are they talking about like trapping?
Let me read that. Possible errors in interpretation. Where did you read that?
So
it's at the bottom?
Yes, it's right here underneath figure 4. It says possible errors in interpretation of this theory here. For
harnessing resonant energy to the load, harnessing the magnetic field energy to the load. Oh.
Right, and they're saying that
well, the magnetic field lags the current a little bit. The current is generating the magnetic field.
Mm-hmm. And this one theory that kind of opposes this Lenz Law chapter here, it says because doing that would destroy the resonance itself, trapping the resonance inside would be too much. It would oscillate and kind of destroy itself. It needs somewhere to go.
And they'll cancel it. It'll cancel itself out. I mean,
that's and interference. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I don't know enough about this to have an input. I'm just kind of learning and reading.
Harnessing resonant energy to the load. Well, that's okay. Let me describe how I think that's done. How do you harness resonant energy to the load? You have a motor that is your load, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a 12-volt battery that's your source. If your motor is the coil, the driving coil on the motor, if it's drawing only what the battery likes to provide, then it's a resonant load. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. So
right, if you put a motor that's too big for that battery, you're not creating a resonant load. You need you got a small battery, you need a small motor.
So the resonance is dependent on the load, and depending on that load, the resonance.
Right, there's only so many amps in that battery, and it has a 12-volt potential behind it to push those amps out at a certain rate, at 12-volt rate, at a 12-volt rate.
This is very important. I'm glad you brought this up because when trying to push my Rodin coil system into a different load, if it's dependent on the load, that means the resonant frequency that I've tuned into in this system for the stereo is going to change.
Okay, the way you would harness a magnetic field to a load is with a transformer with a primary and a secondary. The primary would
either you would have to have a bigger battery or a smaller motor for it to synchronize.
Well, like number one, harnessing a resonant energy to the load. If you have a motor that's drawing on a battery that can only provide 5 amps for 1 hour at 12 volts, then you want you don't want to pull. Then that's the resonance for that battery, 5 amps at 1 hour. So you have to divide 5 amps into 1 hour, which is boils down to like a couple watts or whatever it is, and then that's what the motor has to be. The coil on the motor has to have a resistance to pull only that much energy and no more.
And
And
The
it will
motor's
never,
too big, it won't work.
right, you'll kill the battery, and that's
Yeah.
not resonance. If the motor's drawing too much, it kills the battery fast, and you
There has
didn't
to
use
be
the
a
power efficiently.
ratio, like a balancing ratio between battery and motor.
Right. So the battery is the pendulum weight. You know, the two sides of the battery weighs so much, and the motor weighs so much.
Right. It's like
Has so much weight.
Jordan
And-
Collin was talking about Tesla coils and how there has to be an exact relationship between the spark gap and the secondary coil in terms of resonance.
Yeah, the further your gap is, the less current's going to get through, and the frequency will slow down. And because the gap's further apart and takes longer for the contact to connect. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff makes sense what they're talking about. They're not off topic when they say things in these writings here. Who's this by again?
Oh, so this is a group of people, a group of academics and independent researchers put this guide together, and they've been revising it over the years. There's specific names in there I can give you.
I'm seeing the two lines going up the center of the coil there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you go back a little.
Oh, sorry.
Back up. Oh, Stan Meyers. Okay.
Yes, that's what we're going to be getting into in a minute.
Well, you saw the two field lines are going in the center of the coil, then the other field lines are going on the outside of the coil, and something they were trying to describe going on there. On those two coils with the parallel and horizontal.
Yeah, and these don't look too difficult to replicate. This might be a little more complicated for me, but
You see the magnet, and you see the two red magnets, the south pointing in the center of the coil on the left diagram, A?
Yeah, I see it.
And then B, you see three magnets. You can see a south in the center.
Right. And then this one is the opposite. Interesting.
So what is it creating? Like a positive, negative, positive?
Yeah, they're trying to channel the magnetic field in different ways through a coil to get your
red would be positive.
You see the R?
Red, yes.
RL, resistive load, that's where your light would give out power in those two connections. They're just trying to use that example for any experimenter out there that wants to see the difference between moving magnetic field through a coil in different ways, as they're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
This really looks interesting to experiment with, to play with.
That and using the resistive load on the three outputs, the three different coils, you can check different volts and currents and kind of figure out what's going on.
I have these magnets, and I've got I just dissected an old mattress and got the coils out of it, the spring coils out of that. It would be kind of fun to have a voltmeter, it would be fun to attach these things and see what happens, to magnets, because I've got those.
You see on
experimental
C,
science.
Lulu, on the right, Ben, look at graph C.
Okay.
You see the two, on the C, A, B, C. Look at C of the three setups, and you see the two magnets on the right, how the north and south are attracting each other.
Yeah, this right here.
On the inside, in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like having two cells, a double. So what they're doing is in A, they have an equal south from two ends going in the coil.
Uh-huh.
And in B, they have that's a weird one.
So it's asymmetrical?
No, they're just sending they're sending the magnetic field into the coil in a different, they're showing you how you can send magnetic field through a coil in different ways.
Oh, these are different
I
examples of
think
how you
one
can send it
like,
through.
isn't
Well,
C
yeah.
like amplifying to? I think C is like amplifying it from the
If
right
you were to
side to the
pass those
left,
coils, those magnets over the coil rotor or something.
and B is amplifying it from the left to the right. I mean,
Oh, okay, that
that's
makes
what
sense.
Looks like
you see how
that's
the two ones have the same direction.
in
That's like
B, Lulu, the
amplification. Like,
two magnets on the right, all three of the magnets, well, actually, sorry, the two on the right are attracting each other. Only the two on the left in section B
yes.
are pointing to the right with the
Yes.
south. And then in section C, the two on the left are attracting each other on that side of the coil, and the two on the right are also attracting each other on that side of the coil.
So like let's say on B, it's the where it says the L, where you see L1.
It's a good thing you got the
on the B
diagrams.
Where you see the L1, it's like those two magnets are combining to create a greater magnetic force. You know, a greater a forward push
Okay,
for
so
that
it's
magnetic
like
field.
they're amplifying each other.
In the center of the coil, right?
That's what I see. That like from the B, they're being amplified from the left side. On C, they're being amplified from the right side.
I think A is the symmetrical magnetic field going into the coil, which probably would cancel and give you nothing. And B is an asymmetrical magnetic field going into the coil, because you have two fields going into the coil, one on the left and then this. You see if you see where the magnets are attracting, the two magnets, that suggests that they're connected together. They're actually together, and they're creating a stronger magnetic field there as one magnet, but two together. So if you see a blue and a red facing each other, just assume they're touching each other. They're actually bonded. And it's a bigger magnet on that side of the coil. And then you look at the other magnets by itself. Because it's opposing, it can't be connected unless they're forced together. I don't know, unless they're tied together with this.
Well, then B wouldn't make any sense, because wouldn't that cancel out?
B is also canceling on the right, because they're alike fields, the same south, right? So they can't be bonded. But the bigger magnet to the left are bonded. The two to the left in B are bonded because they're attracting each other. So assumedly they're connected to each other since they're in attraction.
But wouldn't a repulsive force also create an energy field?
A repulsive,
like
right? That's what the two souths facing each other is doing, right?
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it should. And because it's got to either go up or down or get escape somehow.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. Like when it's the two, like where it says where you see that, like on the A, the two red ones. They're not canceling each other out, but it's a.
But in all three, they have a repulsive force going on.
Yes, at one point of it, yes. I don't know. I have to play with it. Like,
but on A, they have an equal repulsive force, and B, they have an unequal repulsive force. And in C, they have they have a greater repulsive force on the left in B, and a weaker one on the right. And in C, they have a greater repulsive force on the right with the two bonded, and the weaker one on the left.
So which one do you think creates more energy?
So basically in C, the two on the right, in C, the two on the right are creating a stronger south, facing that south, that single magnet south. And in B, the two on the left are creating a stronger south, facing that weaker magnet on the right, that single magnet south. And in A, you have two equal souths facing each other, equal size magnets.
I think I know. Like B is creating a north magnetic pole, like which is in the center of the circuit. That's where the energy. But C is on the periphery.
Oh,
that's
that
you see, like it's like going out.
It's the placement of the magnet in relationship to the coil.
Well, the red is south, Lulu. The north seems to be on the outside.
Okay, then just to flip what I said, you know, like if
Right.
the reds are the south, it
Right.
means the
So that
vector is
makes sense.
pointing
If they
it
would put the south there, the north would go around the coil and in the top of it on the other side and create
exactly.
flow. That's insane. Yeah, that's a good idea here. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I knew you guys would love this, and I plan to, stream
Looking
some
at
more of this
B in the
stuff.
center one more time, you got the stronger south at the bottom of the coil with a weaker south on the right. But the north to the left, that stronger north on the left, has to go somewhere, and it goes up around the top of the coil down to meet the south going up. So it goes around to the left and down the middle of the coil to meet the south. That north I'm talking about. That strong north in B to the left,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
it goes up or up the coil, around the coil, up, down the top of the coil, the center, to meet the south. If you're thinking of a field, visualize a toroidal field there, you can see it. So the north, that strong north is going to
one is
meet that south through the magnet, its own magnet, through the coil.
like B would have the energy kind of in the center, where C would have the energy flow to the side of the circuit rather than the inside of the circuit. Right?
Looks like B has got the energy flowing on the right side of the coil. C has the energy flowing on the left side of the coil, and A has the energy flowing on both sides of the coil. Because the arrow is touching. On B, the stronger south is flowing on the right side of the coil, where the weaker south is meeting it right there as well.
So what we could assume from the diagram that on A and B there's no energy leaks, but on C there is, because it's not, the energy still resonating outside of the circuit, right? The other ones are within
I
the
mean, you
circuit.
could pass a magnetic field over a copper coil, over the surface of it. You could pass it in the center of it, I think.
So it
I think
wouldn't
it's
matter.
best to pass the field over the winding, not necessarily inside the donut. There's no copper there. You want the field to go over the copper, and the copper, winding has a hole in the middle, and there's nothing in there. There's no copper in that hole. It's actually it's in the winding, the copper, the ring shape. That's where the magnetic field wants to go. You want to put it right there, so that's probably why.
So we
And then
would
they
assume
have.
either A or B is the best possible option for the best power output.
I don't know what these circuits would do, but it looks like they're designed to show you on the RL terminals with a voltmeter different outputs with the same with different arrangement of magnets. Yeah. It's just, I think it's designed for experimenters to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and this guide has a lot of cool stuff like that, like little diagrams and little circuits that you can build that they're based off of the principles they're explaining, which is really cool for me because some of these, they're not too complicated. They're gonna take me a little bit of know-how to set them up, but I think I could do something like this.
So when you pass a magnet over the arms of the coil, that's when the power gets collected. It doesn't, when the magnet passes through the center of the coil, nothing happens.
Really? Okay, so it's only when it passes on the side, not in the center.
It has to, yeah. If you wind a coil, like let's say a coil, like a donut shape. The donut has two arms, and you just put a north and south pass over the two arms, and when it passes over the two arms, the current will induce into the coil at that point, not when the magnet's over the center of the hole there, or the donut hole is. There's no activity, nothing happens, because it needs the magnetic field from the magnet has to pass or swipe over the copper winding itself. So that's why you see the arrows pointing on the arm of the coil Only one arrow seems to be. Well, I mean,
You know,
yeah,
it's like one in one configuration there's a 0 point, and then when you measure it in a different way, the 0 point changes. You know, because if you have inside of the circuit you have no magnetic field, well, that's a 0 point.
Right.
I think figure A is a canceling effect, because when you send a south up one arm of the coil and the same south up the other arm of the coil, they're just going to cancel. If you were to take the magnet on the left side of A and flip it around, you would have flow. The north flow, because they attract.
Yeah, I know, but what if it's measuring the push like the repulsive energy?
Could
That's
be.
what the on A.
Could be.
So it's not necessarily measuring the canceling, but more
It's a
of
simulated canceling effect, but it's really not canceling. What you have is
not. Yeah, it's
two
it's creating
identical signals that are in line with each other, so you don't hear any, any one of them. But if you were to shift one signal off slightly by 1 degree, you would hear both of them all of a sudden. So that the two signals are there. It's like I saw this debunker. What was that actor talking about? 1 times 1 is 2 or whatever.
Terrence Howard.
This video to debunk him. What's his name again?
Terrence Howard.
There you
he
go.
rubs me the wrong way. I don't know about him.
Let me just tell you about this debunking video I saw where they showed 2 guys on each side of a stone block pushing the same amount of weight, and the stone didn't move, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of what you see here in A. So what I'm saying though about this though, 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, whatever. I'm not agreeing with Howard. Howard is his name?
Howard. Yeah, no, he speaks a lot of truth.
I'm not agreeing with Howard or disagreeing with Howard here in this statement, but when you have 2 guys with equal 10 pounds force on that stone, does not the stone absorb 10 pounds from each side and now have 20 pounds of force upon it?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
like
does not that happen in piezoelectricity with a quartz crystal? You pressurize it on one side,
and it creates
you
an
get 5
electric
volts.
charge.
You put the same pressure on the other side, you get 10 volts, okay?
That makes a lot of sense. No, yeah, that's cool.
And I know that for a fact.
But no, that's what I'm saying. Terrence Howard, he speaks a lot of truth. It's the way he says it. Like he talks about vortex
People
math.
don't like actors in general.
Yeah, no, I don't trust him. But he talks about vortex math without actually saying vortex math. And I think it's because he wants people to believe him and his team came up with these ideas, and he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff he was talking about, I heard from Rodin years ago. And
exactly.
Other guys.
Yeah. No, he's a peddler. I think he's a failed actor and a failed engineer, and he's trying to.
He may, you know what? He may have caught on to something with the flower of life that we're not seeing.
Maybe.
But he hasn't done a great job in explaining it.
No, and the thing is, if he has discovered something, that would be awesome. But he has no intention of open sourcing anything.
Maybe he's still figuring it out.
But he doesn't have. He wants to monetize it.
But that's my point with this here on the left with A and the 1 force on one side and the same single force on the other.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
And notice that the 2 forces are going up the 2 sides of the arms of the coil.
Right.
Not in the center. And look at this. In B, you see 1 double force going up 1 arm of the coil, and they're just swiping the other force along with it, along the way on the same arm of the coil. Actually, only 1 arm of the coil. That's what I see is going on here. Is different.
So we're gonna get ready to take
your idea of the piezoelectric effect. I think that is really accurate. That really makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, I know it does because I've done this myself. With I can't remember what it was.
But to say that the principle applies scientifically to crystal and not even think about it applying to anything else is kind of ridiculous in mainstream science. These
debunkers, it's easy to debunk something with a sentence or 2, and it will make sense by the way you say it.
Oh, I've
But if
seen
you have a
terrible.
scientific mind,
I've seen
you
terrible
can
debunking
look past
videos.
that.
That was that. Who's that older gentleman who does the who's an engineer who does the motors and stuff that shit. I don't remember his name, but he tried to debunk the Rodin coil, and he did one single configuration of it and hooked it up in the most basic way and did one single test and said, "Oh, it's debunked." And I'm like, you got to be effing kidding me. There are so many different ways to wind that and configure it. And you just go, it's what they did with the ether. There's so many different theories about the ether. They tested one, it didn't work, and they're like, oh, there's no such thing as the ether.
What
my
if the
experience when you're building
EVOs
something.
what if the EVOs are actually trapped plasmoids in any object? Like, how the piezoelectric effect is in crystals. It's trapped energy.
I think it is. I mean, if you listen to Malcolm Bendel and his plasmoid model, everything is a plasmoid.
Well, you know what that suggests, though? The EVOs and plasmoids and focal points specifically. You know what that suggests? That suggests that because when you have a focal point of a signal, that means the signal was emitted from somewhere, right? Let's say you have an antenna over here and an antenna over there, and you tuned them right, and you created a ball of light in the center where the signals meet, right? That's your focal point, right? Because you tuned the two antennas right, and you got them resonating right with the right amperage and the right voltage and the right frequency and all that. Now they're creating a perfect, what they call a pure sine wave. They even sell, pure sine wave inverters so that you can clean up the power to your house and save power and preserve all your electronics from
clean up the
damage.
signal.
Yeah, and it makes the sine wave nice and clean with no spikes or distortions or disruptions of any kind. And that's basically what you're going to do with your two antennas to create the ball of light, the focal point in the center, right? That's what the sun is. And that ball of light's going to move like a sine wave up and down because it's a wave, and it's going to vibrate up and down. But the focal point's going to stay in tune because the two antennas are in tune and all that, right?
Right.
Well, where was I going with this?
That's a scary thought. What you're saying. What if our whole sun is actually to,
Where was I going with that?
You're going with cleaning up the frequency to get a better sine wave, like for signals.
Right. So I forgot what my point was, though. Totally. Sorry. This got something to do with the topic here, though. I forgot where I was going with that point, but there's a point to it.
You're saying it's two antennas that match in frequency can create a center of energy. Right?
It's kind of like how the levitation.
What it suggests. What does the focal point suggest? That's where I was going. What does that suggest? That suggests that there's a beginning and an end to the signal. It came from somewhere. There's two antennas.
Right. Oh, that's
somewhere.
Interesting.
That's what that suggests. The existence of a focal point or plasmoids. UVO, EVO.
Yeah, EVOs or EVO.
Yeah, those things. So it suggests that there's two in-tune antennas somewhere, transmitting and signal, receiving, and creating that wave from the 2 points.
Yeah,
that's what that suggests.
It also suggests that something that I've thought for a while is that our universe is a fractal. Like from the microscopic to the macroscopic, we see the same sacred geometric shapes. And it's my belief that the universe itself is shaped like a donut. We're on the south side that's expanding, but there's a north side that we can't see that's kind of contracting, kind of like a black hole and a white hole.
Well, what if Earth is antenna 1 and planet B is antenna 2? And that's why we have a focal point of light.
I don't think planet Earth is strong enough. I think if it's what you're saying.
I mean, planet Earth's full of quartz, gold, all these minerals like you can't believe.
To
it's
amplify,
being packed in every day with new minerals from. it's full of
Well,
semiconducting materials.
That's interesting to think about, and I think this is
It's
good.
got water on it with salt in it.
No, that is interesting to think about, but I think this is a good segue into our break. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll be going over Stan Meyers' water-powered engine.
All right.
All right, so stay tuned for that, everybody. And again, you can follow along in the link in the description.
EVO, exotic vacuum objects. Is that what that thing that they captured, the military, Afghanistan or whatever, that floating
I think
object?
everything has EVOs in it. It's just if you the law of conservation protects energy and creates like in
For hundreds, if
encapsulated
not
over
thousands of years, the Akashic record has been a mystery that many cultures around the world have participated in solving. The earliest known references to the concept of an Akashic record can be traced back to Hindu and Buddhist teachings, which date as far back as 1500 BCE. The term Akashic records comes from the Sanskrit word akasha, meaning ether or atmosphere. In Hinduism and Buddhism, it refers to a cosmic or universal consciousness. The concept of a cosmic library or record-keeping system has also been present in ancient Egyptian and Greek philosophy. The Akashic records are a concept that suggests everything that has ever happened or will happen is stored in an ethereal library. In Egyptian culture, there are symbols that represent important ideas and concepts, such as the Eye of Horus or the Ankh. The Akashic records can be depicted as a library or book, while the Eye of Horus or the Ankh can be included to represent Egyptian culture. When combined, these symbols can represent the idea of a connection between Egyptian culture and the Akashic records. Does the key to unlocking the mysteries of the Akashic records lie within the enigmatic symbols and stories of ancient Egyptian civilization, waiting to be deciphered by those who seek to understand the secrets of the universe?
Go on. There's an infinite number of dimensions, and I was born with the ability to access all of them.
You must have been a fun kid to babysit.
Some differ from ours in the smallest way. Others couldn't be more different.
This cosmic memory, or universal consciousness, that contains all knowledge and information has been present in various forms and cultures throughout history, including ancient Egyptian and Greek philosophy. Despite its long history, the Akashic records continue to intrigue and fascinate people today, with many spiritual and metaphysical practitioners exploring the concept in depth in order to gain a deeper understanding of consciousness and the universe. But what if this cosmic consciousness was an energy that permeates all of existence linearly, the highest form of energy in the universe? What Marco Rodin described in his visions, zero-point energy. It exists in every possible parallel universe.
Although completely invisible to the naked eye, a virtual universe of electromagnetic waves permeates our entire world.
However, according to Roger Penrose, these universes are not infinite. Though they do potentially contain a multitude of different forms of knowledge and wisdom.
What's important is that each dimension has something unique and valuable. Shakespeare's we've never read. Technologies beyond our understanding. New ways of thinking. Philosophies of peace. All our problems, famine, war, climate change, cancer, have been solved somewhere else.
The concept of a universal encyclopedia isn't just one for mystics and philosophers. Scientists and innovators alike have claimed to only make their groundbreaking discoveries through visions, moments of intense focus and clarity, where these visionaries claim to actually be receiving data rather than creating it. This energy, since it exists in every universe simultaneously, and since time is a construct that we create and is not actually happening linearly, can contain a multitude of knowledge. From Tesla to Einstein, many visionaries and innovators have utilized this universal encyclopedia. Both Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein were known for their periods of deep contemplation and thought. According to various reports, Tesla would often retreat to a solitary room in his laboratory, where he would spend hours or even days thinking and working out complex problems. Einstein, on the other hand, was known to take long walks in nature and meditate on the mysteries of the universe. He believed that his best ideas came to him during these periods of quiet introspection and contemplation. Both men valued the power of focused thought and believed that it was essential for unlocking new breakthroughs and discoveries. One could theorize that Tesla and Einstein were engaging in forms of meditation, even if they didn't necessarily label it as such. Meditation is a broad term that can describe any practice that helps to focus and calm the mind, including sitting quietly, breathing exercises, visualization, and more. Both Tesla and Einstein were known for their ability to concentrate deeply on their work and to enter a state of flow where they were completely absorbed in what they were doing. This type of focused attention is similar to what one might experience during meditation, where the mind is trained to quiet distractions and focus on a single point of attention. Additionally, the act of spending time alone, away from the distractions of the outside world, is another common component of meditation, and both Tesla and Einstein took time to retreat and focus their minds in this way. Perhaps meditation is allowing us to pull the veils of reality from our eyes, pulling back the curtains on the world stage. It's been known that psychedelic experiences induce higher states of consciousness. This has been proven by the fact that brain scans done on those under the influence of psychotropics reveal almost no brain activity. If one were to predict what is going to happen during a psychedelic experience from the viewpoint of mainstream science, which states that consciousness is local and all centered in the brain, then this revelation would shatter your world. This tells us that these experiences of higher states of awareness are not happening locally within the brain. They are not creations or hallucinations. Our brain censors our reality in order to focus us into a state of survival. We think linearly, even though time is just a construct and proven to be happening all at once. The superposition of our lives, superimposed onto a cosmic conscious energy that flows through everything. This energy creates an encyclopedia that, when accessed, can lead to significant insights and breakthroughs. So what if we could access this encyclopedia? What if we could answer, solve, overcome, analyze, strategize, and resolve any problem the human race can or will ever experience? I look back at Siddhartha Buddha, the enlightened one, and can't help but wonder, could this be what Buddha was actually doing when attaining enlightenment? Full access to the cosmic memory, giving unfettered access to an infinite wisdom. It is possible that the Buddha or other advanced practitioners could have developed a deep intuitive access to the Akashic record through their meditation practice, leading to the insights that are associated with enlightenment. There is only one way to find out. According to science, it only takes 2% of a system to adhere to coherence. The phenomenon is called the threshold effect. It is a concept in physics that refers to a critical point where a drastic change occurs in the behavior of a system. In certain systems, such as liquid helium, it has been observed that when the temperature is lowered, the behavior of the system changes dramatically, and it becomes a superfluid. In the case of liquid helium, the threshold effect occurs when the temperature drops below a critical point known as the lambda point. At this point, approximately 2% of the helium atoms undergo a phase transition and become coherent, meaning they all behave in the same way. This coherence then spreads throughout the entire system, resulting in the unusual properties of a superfluid. So, while it is true that only 2% of the system undergoes the phase transition, the coherence ultimately spreads throughout the entire system, resulting in a superfluid. Now imagine if we could translate this effect into the collective consciousness, that is the human race. As above, so below.
He's beginning to believe.
Imagine if we get 2% of a city to meditate and focus on a single collective thought to access this encyclopedia. This isn't just a thought experiment here. I'm asking you all to actually try this with me.
I did not see that coming. Because you're the clone.
For more videos on consciousness, zero-point energy, and other forms of forbidden knowledge, like and subscribe to my YouTube and TikTok channels. What are you waiting for? Take the red pill and arm yourself with forbidden knowledge. Subscribe today.
Layer of data, that they're all connected like on one network, whether from the beginning, like when they first made this chip. And so whatever is built upon afterwards, that becomes like a tier 2 integration. But the tier 1, like it's like the running program, the behind the scenes running program, these, like what you're saying, for military applications, they're all still under one piece, one connecting field. And everything else is like it gets built as layers on top of that. But for us, like normal human beings, our cell phones, we're probably connecting on like tier 3 or 4 before, like, but there are the
I mean, I've heard of these tier groups. I'm not clear on what they are doing, the tiers.
like our data at the end all goes to either Taiwan or China, where they actually manufacture these chips, because they will always have like a locator on them. So the data would still, go run through the basic components into their servers, any communication, anything. So really, we talk about cybersecurity and firewalls and securing this and securing that, but at the end of the day, they're on the chip. There's a command code that's called "Take Me Home." Something like that. Like all the data gets, anything you do on where, it depends on where that chip was manufactured.
Oh, right, the Take Me Home protocol, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we're
So-
back
I know
live.
that one.
And sorry to interrupt you guys. We are jumping into Stan Meyers' water-powered engine. Hi, Misunderstood. How you doing, everybody? We have Mike here, and give me a second to load up and see your name. I'm sorry, what was your name?
Well,
my name is legal name Nawal Sajari, but everybody calls me Lulu. It's just
Lulu.
easier.
Okay. No, it's just
Yes.
I'm trying to see your name on the StreamYard, and it's not popping up for some reason. My system is really slow.
It's Nawal Sajari, NAWALSEIJARI.
hey, hang on, that's me. I'm not. There you go.
It's okay. And so we're here with Mike and Lulu, and we're going to be going over the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices chapter on Stan Meyers' water-powered engine. This is very fascinating. I've done some reading on this. I might have some parts highlighted, but we're just going to jump into the chapter here, and I'm going to start reading. And do I have any highlighted parts? Okay, I don't have any highlighted parts. So we're just going to start reading and see what this latest edition has to say about Stan Meyer here. For larger engines aimed at producing mechanical output, we need a more powerful system such as that developed by Stan Meyer of America. Although many years have passed since the sudden highly suspicious death of Stan Meyer, as far as I'm aware, his design has not been replicated, mainly because people do not understand the information which he left behind. A lot of inventors obscure their patents and designs for intentional monetary reasons. So
They call that FOMO.
it's called what?
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes, fear of missing out.
FOMO.
Yeah. However, recently a man...
That's what gets most of the inventors.
Right. However, recently a man whose form ID is H2O Power has helped explain what Stan meant, and much of the following description is down to his sharing and his understanding of his public knowledge, sharing his understanding publicly and freely. So I suspect this has something to do with resonance. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, any system has to be in resonance to work at its maximum efficiency. You know.
All right.
So
I'm thinking it's not the energy is being harnessed by breaking the bond of the hydrogen and the water, but like when that bond is broken, that's what's creating that burst of energy, and it's not the core of the hydrogen or the oxygen that's creating the energy. It's just the breaking of the
there's another
bond between.
There's another process you're saying other than the electrolysis that's going on.
I mean, I suppose you can vibrate at certain frequencies your plates and disrupt the bond of the hydrogen.
That's interesting you say that, because I did see somebody on YouTube, a younger fella, who claimed to have understood this himself. I didn't immediately understand it all, but he was resonating the tubes that you use inside the to start the electrolysis process inside the vat of water or whatever. He was.
I mean, do you understand how dangerous it would be to, you're talking water, it's hydrogen and oxygen. If you are to tamper with the core of the hydrogen, you could create like the hydrogen bomb in a sense, and the oxygen also, like, releasing the core neutrons and protons could create an enormous energy, so really the only thing that you could is the bonds between them. By breaking that bond, the energy is released rather than tampering with the core of the atom.
So do you think this has
what's a greater bond?
Cavitation?
I mean, it might be, look, you break the bonds between the two hydrogens, or you break the bond between the two hydrogens and the oxygen. If you could break two hydrogens into one hydrogen, does the oxygen automatically break off as well when you do that? I mean, those are like details that we don't know,
Right.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm saying the energy that is being harnessed is the breaking of the bond, because breaking the bond still has, if you're like snapping two things, it's still going to have an energy release, like a photon release, which we read it as energy. And this is what the energy of the water engine. So it's not like taking.
Well, I understand Stan was converting water to hydrogen. He was just getting rid of the oxygen really fast and turning it to pure hydrogen.
Yeah, then what is he doing with the pure hydrogen after that?
That's what hydrocarbons are in your car. The gasoline is hydrogen with carbon. You don't burn the carbon, you burn the hydrogen. He was burning the hydrogen to prove that you can use it as a fuel. He was making hydrogen really fast and effectively.
That's
with his device.
There's something missing in that, because burning the hydrogen could be very dangerous. I don't know how to explain.
Well, he was converting water into. He was removing the oxygen from the water and making hydrogen.
Okay, but when he was doing that, where is the energy harnessed? After the burning the hydrogen, or
Yeah,
the
no,
energy being
there was no
harnessed?
energy harnessing in his device. It was a water to fuel converter to convert water to fuel, or to make water into hydrogen without the oxygen.
So if he was, and this is my theory, if he was resonating the electrolysis
And no carbon
process
either.
at a specific frequency, he might been able to form bubble cavitations, and that's instead of an explosive force, that's an implosive force, which is kind of safe and contained because it's what forms plasmoid clusters, and they have a tendency to draw in protium from the surrounding environment to charge themselves, and once they reach their maximum charge density, they just explode with a bunch of energy, and they can release.
That's
up to
funny.
1
I've heard that
kilowatt
word
of the power.
before, protium.
Yeah, and this is all based off of Malcolm's plasmoid model, but this is
What was
my
the
theory.
protium again? That's
It's hydrogen. It's an isotope of hydrogen. It's the most
it's a
abundant.
type of hydrogen, right?
Yeah, it's the most abundant element in the universe, which makes sense. So if the universe was going to run itself on something, it would be the most abundant.
So maybe
element it has available.
maybe he was converting that oxygen into a protein.
Yeah, that could be, and feeding the process somehow.
With the implosive thing, maybe the oxygen molecule in the water imploded and not the hydrogen, and in return you created a protium, and now you have pure hydrogen. You have two standard hydrogens with a protium, which is still hydrogen. It'll burn.
Hey,
your car won't even recognize that oxygen anymore. It'll recognize that as a hydrogen because it turned into a protein.
That's so cool. I didn't get to see the thunderstorm generator, unfortunately, or meet Malcolm, but he has said that he is a big fan of my page or my channel here. He's watched Divine Science and he loves it. So yeah, I'm excited to meet him. I'll probably meet him one day, but it's not going to be today, unfortunately. He's at the conference right now showing off the thunderstorm generator, and I actually have a ticket to his class tomorrow, so I might be doing some highlights from his class.
Are you going to live to his class?
Yeah, it's a remote ticket, but he's doing a class for the first time.
Malcolm Bendel? He's the one talking about the deluge a lot.
I don't think so. His claim to fame is the MSART, molten sea arc atomic reconstruction technology, which is basically technology based off of his plasmoid unification model. It utilizes plasmoids.
I know the name well. I have never, I guess he doesn't have a YouTube channel or something.
Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting, his model, and it shows a lot of promise, in my opinion, of unifying a lot of our sciences. It's helped me to understand a lot as a layman.
I think Stan Meyers was making a plasma generator. He had the right frequency and it created a nice plasma.
Yeah, that was my theory. Once I started delving into the plasmoid model, I'm like, if plasmoids are so abundant and they're everywhere, and they're you can form them by bubble cavitation, which is, if you look at there's a chapter on in here that's goes into cavitation, and it just the turbines on a boat, just the spinning motion, the vortex, will create these plasmoid cavitation structure. These
when you mention cavitation and bubble cavitation, you know what that reminds me of? Of when just generating eddy currents will do that. And
right.
If you generate eddy currents, electrical eddy currents inside water, you can create a lot of cavitation.
That makes sense. If that's true, then, and I'm sure it's true because you know what you're talking about. So, yeah, I know that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the electricity is going to generate those eddy currents, the flow of the electricity.
Well, what I was going to say about the propellers on the boats, when you look at them, some of them have big chunks missing out of them, like spherical chunks. And plasmoids, as analyzed by Bob Greenier in his research under a scanning electron microscope, they take big chunks out of stuff that they hit when they explode sometimes. And the matter just disassociates into something else. Like it's gone. It's not melted. It's not scattered.
This is new to me.
Yeah, it's Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. You'll find some of that fascinating.
That might explain all these, people disappearing and when they go hiking and stuff.
I'm sure it could explain a lot of weird phenomenon. For sure.
They say it's Bigfoot. Maybe Bigfoot's creating these plasmoids.
A big plasmoid, yeah. Well, when you see ball lightning, a giant ball lightning structure, very rare, but it does occur, and they float around. They seem to sometimes they act like they have a consciousness.
Those things,
of their
that's
own.
what you're calling the plasmoid. Those ball lightnings. That's
Yeah,
what'll
it's all the same
chop off
thing.
that propeller like that.
Yep, it's all the same thing.
And they're in the water too, huh? In the ocean. That's
Well,
crazy.
they can be created, like the whirlwind motion of the propeller.
Jeez.
That's again, it comes back to that vortex motion.
And what do you do if one of those things is coming at you?
I don't know, but honestly, according to our ongoing theories from Malcolm,
Even worse, if it's actually polarized to you.
They
It's like
don't usually
like the
interact with
magnet for it.
well, they don't usually interact with organic matter in a destructive way. That's
Well, they definitely ate up that propeller then.
right. Well, that's inorganic matter, but fortunately, most of the time, most of them don't interact with organic matter, from as I understand it, and it's very rare to begin with.
I find that hard to believe.
Well, the plasmoids themselves aren't rare. I misspoke. The giant plasma balls, the giant ball lightning structures are very rare, but microscopic plasmoids.
So if these
they
things
happen all the
exist,
time.
why are people looking at the sun like it's something different?
Because our status quo tells us to look over here, while we should be looking over there. I don't know.
and let's not forget the sun is also moving, like these things move.
Well, that's also interesting you brought that up, because there is an ending chapter I have in here, a very brief one, on the suppression of knowledge in science. And it's very brief, but I'd like to go over a couple of things, because there's something in there on global warming that I wasn't aware of, and that I might have to relook my opinions on, or rethink my opinions on the topic. But,
It doesn't sound like a standing wave, because if they're moving, how is it a standing wave?
I'm not sure. There's a lot that I have to wrap my head around here. I'm not even sure that I understand fully what scalar waves are.
I believe that's the waves going out the side. If you have a Tesla coil sitting vertical, the scalar waves are the waves going out left and right.
So is it a linear, like when you have a slinky moving like?
Yeah, it's like a radial, like a round wave going out in all directions from the center of the vertical standing antenna, and it goes out horizontally out the sides of the
instead of peaking up
the bar. No, it doesn't go out the top. No, what goes out the top, in my opinion, is a very dense and compressed, very narrow and accurate and clean signal, but hard to capture because it's so narrow. You have to have your antenna in the right spot, right where it's going, because it's such a narrow stream of signal. And that's the vortex center of the toroidal field that the antenna is releasing from out the sides.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just caught
It goes out the sides and up the top and down the bottom and up the bottom.
So it's creating like a helix formation.
Yeah, like a toroidal field.
So
is that what it is? Helix?
Yeah, like when you have a
helix pattern.
I mean, but it's got, as it's going out the sides, that's a large that's where all the energy is, and it's dispersed into 99% of the signal's shape.
Misunderstood said, my friend who maintains yachts. Exactly, missing bits. Yep. Yeah, so I'm just getting a glimpse of the next page here, or the bottom of this page, and it says, one component is described as ionizing gas, and ambient air is mentioned. Ionization is a key critical component. The ionization chamber is a critical component in the thunderstorm generator, specifically because it preconditions the air to be perfect for forming plasmoids or cavitation. The second,
it's stripped I think the charge out of the surrounding air, where it absorbs it, then it and then it releases. So I think that's what it's doing, when it's like taking the charges, it's pulling them in, and then it's like releasing it.
Yeah, and it's conditioning the air, so it's perfect to form these to form cavitation because I know Malcolm, one of the components in his plasmoid generator is just basic steel wool, and that's required because you have to break down the bubbles small enough. Because if they're not small enough, they won't collapse in on themselves symmetrically, and that's required for them.
Can I ask you something, Ben, about the steel wool? Is it connected to anything?
No, no, it's just in there, packed in the bottom, just to feed the, when you have the vacuum pulling.
And there's no charge on this device from anywhere?
No, no, just it's just being powered by the engine. That's it. The vacuum phase of the engine sucks the air up through the plasmoid chamber and sucks it up through the steel wool, creating these micro bubbles.
Are the connecting tubes required to be of conductive material?
I don't think so. I haven't looked at. I don't remember exactly what type of metal is required, but it's just
because
standard
when you
steel. I
when
believe.
you channel, just so you know, like aircraft, like these turbine inventors, they found a way to take DC high amperage, low voltage DC power off of the turbine when it's being fueled, and they get it off of the metal tubes.
Right. I'm assuming that has something to do with the separation of charges.
Just like the plasma operates of two flowing fields of opposite directions or whatever.
Right.
You're going to create electrical charge just by doing that alone. You don't need a battery.
So that's
what I'm saying is if the stainless steel, if the steel wool is receiving charge, it would be way more effective at doing what you're saying it does.
Oh, you're saying changing the material of the steel wool would change.
So I'm saying if that tube that holds the steel wool, if it's made out of a conductor, it's probably and it's connected.
There are different different versions of the retrofit that I haven't looked at. Specifically,
I mean, if you had two pipes, one inside the other, right, and two flows of air, okay, right away, one pipe is going to be your anode, and the other pipe is going to be your cathode, and you're going to have some type of voltage and current. So, if that system has a connection of a such to the pipes that are flowing that way, and then the steel wool is somehow electrically connected to those two pipes with the air flowing in two directions, then it could be very possible that the steel wool is receiving charge.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I'd have to look closely at the diagram.
Yeah. Again, it's
Steel
all
wool
open source, so if you wanted to slap one of these together yourself and see what happens.
Or if not the steel wool, the water that's flowing through there could be receiving charge elsewhere and transmitting it to the steel wool. Could be receiving charge from the opposite flowing chambers.
Remember, you're talking about conductors. Like of course, they're receiving some form because they're gonna absorb anything that has energy in it, whether it's steel wool or water or any medium that current can pass. Like energy could pass through it. So yeah, steel wool.
The second sentence here mentions the second component is a part of the exhaust gas, which is hot water vapor fed through a limiting valve referred to as inert gas. The third injection component is a very fine spray of water, droplets, or cold water mist. This is very interesting to me because the Pogue carburetor operates the same way. It turns the gas into a fine mist, doesn't it? To optimize the engine, and that's all it does is it limits or I guess it just changes the density of how much is going into the piston. So that right there. So you have two different free energy devices based on different scientific principles that are unconventional that are combined in this design right here. This guy was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you can get power from two. Like you put two pipes together, and you keep them separated, insulated from each other, but having just air flowing in two directions through them. One pipe will be your plus, and the other will be your negative. You will have some sort of power on them. going on.
Right.
A lot of these devices are taking advantage of that, and so is the turbine engines in all of our aircraft. They do that right now today as we fly through them. That's how they power the plane.
You see this next.
They don't have a generator on board.
You see this next diagram here. I think it kind of shows it. If you can see that.
It's incredible technology. Those turbines,
And
the jet turbines.
Malcolm also has a thunderstorm turbine. I haven't looked too much into it, but that's all available online too to check out if you want to check that out.
Yeah, I mean the commercial air turbines are flowing the jet fuel in two directions to make that power. They do the same philosophy as these things, and that's essentially over Unity because they're flying this huge thing, full of people on it and luggage, including the plane itself, and across thousands of miles with so much liquid hydrogen in the tank, and at the same time they're running all the electronics on the thing. Of course, they have battery backups.
Hey, Mike, you see this diagram here? Look at this. What is he doing? He's using LEDs to ionize the gas and energize it.
That Meyers device?
Yeah, it's the same.
That's right. I recall that.
Pre-ionization chamber.
I recall him mentioning something or saying something about that.
Scroll back up, please. Scroll back up a sec. Yeah.
Like there?
Yeah. I just want. Yeah.
High intensity LEDs, right?
Okay. Going up on the side.
I'm not sure. Let's see. It's some kind of frequency. The frequency is important, I guess.
Infrared, maybe.
Those are diodes, right? The little diodes.
Yeah, right here on the side are the LEDs. I don't see. Yeah, I don't think they're diodes. I think they're LEDs, right?
When you're an experimenter, you use whatever's available to you to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm just takes off the shelf UV lights for his ionization chamber.
Ultraviolet would ionize, right? It's a high frequency light spectrum. I don't see why it wouldn't charge up, charge things up.
BMW had this in some cars to increase efficiency, but folks didn't want to add the water, apparently. Oh,
so
wow.
Stan was trying to increase it and raise the frequency by beaming high frequency light at.
Yeah, apparently he's energizing the gas to precondition for cavitation. This is really interesting here. This is the first time I'm seeing this. I think I skimmed over it briefly, but I did not see this.
Are the LED lights the indicator that there's something passing through, or is it like the energy is
So that, from my understanding, the LEDs are imprinting a certain frequency onto the gas, using this specific wavelength, and that ionizes it and gives it more energy to make it easier, I guess, for the plasmoids to form. From what I understand.
So the LED. How are the LED lights being powered? Is it through the exchange?
I'm not sure.
Or is it the external thing that's powering them and using the light to alter the gas molecule? Using.
I'm assuming he has the LEDs hooked up to a battery or something, and then that's conditioning this for the over Unity production of the electrolysis.
I thought LEDs without connecting them to anything, they would turn on when there's a field, there's a field running.
They might. I honestly, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm still an engineer in training, so they might, but I wouldn't know enough about that.
Mike,
at this point.
aren't I right? Like, there's an electrostatic field. The LEDs would on by themselves, and that would be like an indicator that there is a something flowing through.
Yeah, that would be.
The LED light, light up, and so you wouldn't even have to have them connect to anything. But they're used as a sensor mechanism to know, if there's energy flow or electrostatic energy current.
How the heck did he figure this
You
all
understand
out? Do we
Like
have
the
Mike?
other day, we
You might have lost Mike.
To make power, all you need is two potentials. And if you have current flowing in one way, or air flowing in one way, or water flowing in one way, or anything flowing in one way, and something totally different flowing the other way, I would assume you'd still get power on the two chambers if they're isolated and not touching each other. But you still have eddy currents forming on the two chamber walls, interacting with each other in between, inside that isolation area. And that's how it then turns into electricity, because those eddy currents are just, you know, like little nets capturing free ions or free electrons, or just any, you know, there's energy everywhere. So there's plenty of donations to be had from the environment in regards to energy. I mean, the sun, you know, we make solar panels and it's free energy right there. You just had to pay once for the solar panel, and now it's free. I got like a few of them. They're awesome.
Yeah, there were some solar panels patents that came out a while ago that were, I guess, a little bit too efficient for people's comfort, and they got denied.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I guess there was this one that was getting like almost 50% efficiency or something, and there's some kind of threshold. I think it's like anything above like 25% efficiency, and you get somebody's notice.
Check out perovskites. I'll put a link. Hold on.
It's like solar.
That's the new technology.
Solar photovoltaic.
Well, they're coming up with. You can get perovskites out of lead, but it's toxic, so they don't want to use that, right? So they're looking for non-toxic. You could take a sheet of steel, like let's say 10-pound sheet of steel, like 5 by 5 feet, and paint it black, throw it out in the sun, let it get real hot, and connect a diode to one of the corners, and the other corner is your negative. And you charge a battery. The heat, the thermal energy you would probably use a coil also.
Yeah, but like that stuff might melt off. The
I
whatever
think you
paint.
put a coil in parallel with the metal sheet from one corner to the other, and then the coil will absorb the thermal energy from the metal sheet and convert it to volts. And from there, you put a diode on the coil to send the AC volts into a DC volts and store it into a battery. So yeah, there's so many easy ways to collect power. Just solar panels are more efficient at collecting the sunlight than a piece of metal. But a piece of metal that heats up, that's heat right there. You convert that heat to electricity.
That's a very good point. Continuing with this, or finishing up really with this chapter on Stan Meyer.
They're thinking of doing that with the roads.
Right. Yeah, to heat up the roads and use that energy. So
there was something out there about doing something like that.
So to finish up with Stan Meyer, I just want to close with this right here that I just noticed. It says the operation of the gas processor is further enhanced by applying a pulsed high voltage between the inner and outer metal cylinders. This voltage stresses the molecules of the gas flowing between the two cylinders, and because it is pulsed, it applies a tugging action on the molecules, tending to pull them apart. As with all high-powered free energy systems, having the device operate in resonance is very important. If it is still available, the excellent video, and there's a link here. If you it might be clickable or highlightable. I'm not positive in the document. I doubt it is, but you have to manually copy it, see if it still works. But this is very interesting. The videos that I found, people trying to replicate this, they were only doing that, applying a pulsed high voltage to the metal cylinders, but they were not ionizing the gas and preconditioning the gas for bubble cavitation.
Yeah, the gas is in the chambers, right?
Yeah.
You said
I believe so. Yeah,
So if the gas is pre-ionized and you do have the chambers charged, that's like a double whammy and they're going in different directions. That's a very effective way of disassociating the molecules, splitting them up. So if you're doing that to water, you get rid of you'd split the oxygen on one side and the hydrogen on the other very effectively, like that.
So we have.
I'm sure that his device was pouring out oxygen somewhere.
Yeah. No, I'm positive of it too. So this next bit is just a little kind of a cameo here I threw in for fun. It's a water-powered lawnmower. And I don't know if anybody's seen this. I haven't seen it yet.
I saw a video of someone running that a long time ago.
Oh yeah, this is neat. I've never seen this before.
A two-stroke engine off of hydrogen gas from water.
Just
HHO. They use a fuel cell to do it.
Electrolysis. So probably a similar process that Stan Meyer uses. I thought this was just.
They had a thin PVC tube. They used a half-inch PVC tube, white PVC, about 10 feet of it going at an angle to the ground.
I wonder what this is.
And they would create the gas, and it would float up the tube slowly and run the engine.
Yeah, I'm wondering, maybe this is some kind of ionization chamber here. This little
the more effective you are at ionizing water, the more effective you're going to be at converting the water to hydrogen. So every device is a little different, and that one's some are better than the others, but they all work at some degree. These fuel cells, So Stan Meyer's was a very, very high-tech fuel cell device.
Yeah. Yeah, opinion. And he apparently was way ahead of his time. He
prototype.
The way this guy came up with this stuff is incredible, and he didn't have access to the internet back then. This is all like you have to, really be.
That's interesting how he thought of using light to get the frequency.
Yeah, and you have to be a really open-minded thinker who's well informed with these topics these subjects to
if you think about it, it's easier to use high frequency light beams to get a high frequency into your experiment than it is to actually pulse DC that high frequency. It's easier to just use light to do it.
Yeah, that is a good point. So the next
I don't think there are any transistors that can go up in the light spectrum anyway.
The next bit here is goes into the suppression of science. I'm going to go over that just briefly. And, oh, my page froze. Give it a minute.
I mean, a pulse and an oscillation are slightly different.
I really like visualizing that voice fractal like that you have. This is so cool. Like where you could see actually the bits of voice, you know, and particles. This is like awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. The setup is pretty neat. I tried to make it aesthetically pleasing.
Like plasmas oscillate. I don't think they pulse. You know, they are waving like a wave up and down. They're it's like a pulse. It's a plus and then a minus wave. You know, like a positive hump and then a negative hump. But when you're talking about a pulse, you don't have no humps. It's a straight
on off.
You know, it's a really quick on and off. Yeah.
So the suppression of knowledge. Early in October 2011, Sir Christopher Woodhead, former chief inspector of schools in England, stated that children should leave school at age 14 and become apprentices. While I personally have a high opinion of apprenticeships for certain professions, this appears to me to be a direct attempt to lower the education levels of the UK population even further than it already is now, where many sales staff are unable to perform even the most basic arithmetic as part of their job. The basis for how we live our lives and understanding the things around us, society, personal relationships, family values, and the like, is rooted in what we are told by the authorities. Unfortunately, much of what you have been told is just not true. You have been lied to about science, astronomy, the environment, global warming, and government, taxation, war, energy, inventions, education, terrorism, health, finance, and the media, just to name a few topics which spring to mind. All right, and we're just going to go over the science and maybe the astronomy part. Science, there has been and still is systemic, deliberate, and frequently brutal suppression of scientific fact. We are being told that you have to burn a fuel in order to produce power, which is then consumed when we use it to power our lives. This is a deliberate lie. We're told scientific things which are sheer fantasy and designed to keep the truth from us. The objective is to keep the people of this planet ignorant, weak, and subject to the people who know the real facts, and to remove all possible wealth from the ordinary person. I mean, in my opinion, this is just a environment for catastrophe. You're eventually going to lead to a system that's unstable and collapse in on itself. This is just, it doesn't go into too much details, but this is just what the book has on scientific suppression of knowledge.
You know, it's funny what you're saying, because it sounds like they know that they have this exuberant amount of whatever you want to call it, energy for the people, but they would rather waste it than give it to maintain control.
Right.
You know?
And they would do it at the cost of killing themselves, you know, collapsing the economy or the system. It is counterproductive is the word I would use. So some weird stuff. Let's close it with some weird stuff here. Okay, you don't need to know the following information, so please feel free to skip and move on to something else. The presentation shown above is based on the conventional view of electronics and electrical power as taught in schools and colleges. The information and concepts work well for designing and building circuits, but that does not mean that it is wholly correct. Unfortunately, the world is not as simple as is generally made out to be. For example, it is said that current is a flow of electrons passing through the wires of a circuit at the speed of light. While it is true that some electrons do actually flow through the metal of the wires, the small percentage of electrons which actually do that don't do it quite slowly, as they have to negotiate their way through the lattice of the molecules of metal making up the body of wires. This makes sense. In spite of this, when the on-off switch of a circuit is flipped, the circuit powers up immediately, no matter how long the wires are. The reason for this is that the electrical current flows along the wires at very high speeds indeed, but it flows rapidly along the outside of the wire, not rapidly through the wire. 1,000th of a second after switching on the circuit, the electrons flowing through the wire have hardly gotten started, while the current flowing along the outside of the wire has gone all the way through and around the circuit and back. So this is interesting. I don't think a lot of people realize this. I didn't realize this for a while until I started studying electrical engineering.
It makes sense. Like when you power off something, there's still electricity in it sometimes. It takes a while for it. And it's the same idea, that electron that is passing through the medium, the effect of it, lasts longer versus the ones that are on the outside, which disconnect immediately. That's why there's
that goes back to the magnetic field lagging behind the current. See, when you turn the switch on, the current goes through right away, but what's right behind it is the magnetic field. And that magnetic field is present on that line from point A to point B, all along the line. It may be very weak, but it's evenly distributed along the whole line, because that line is vibrating like a guitar string, and that vibration is creating that field, that magnetic field.
Magnetism and electricity are, two aspects of the same phenomenon. So what I'll take this theory one step, or this is not really a theory, it's actually fact, but I'll take this fact one step further and say the reason why
you wouldn't have that without the impedance stuff, without resistance of the coil. The coil has resistance. You wouldn't have any vibration if it was a superconductor.
But I'll take that one step further and say that the reason why the electrons flow on the outside of the conductor is because of the interaction of the fluid ether. Remember, magnetic fields, they turn up the fluid ether in currents.
Well, maybe, the magnetic field through the resistance of your line might gain an attraction to the ether because it's acting like a charged antenna, an antenna that has not so much like a transmitting antenna, but a receiving antenna that's charged in a way to better receive.
Okay, so this last bit says, and this is interesting, this is what I have highlighted. Now the spooky bit, cold electricity, which is what I think is happening in my system. It's not been proven yet, but I suspect. Cold electricity does not flow along or through the wires at all. Instead, it flows in the space around the wire, possibly riding the magnetic field caused by the hot current. Thomas Henry Moray is famous for building a device which captured cold electricity and produced a massive amount of output capable of powering a whole host of ordinary electrical pieces of equipment. Says something about it spinning up the fluid ether.
That reminds me of the flyback right now, that description there. Because when you forward charge the coil in one direction and you disconnect the power to it, it repulses back in the other direction.
It says, it says, regarding Thomas Henry Moray, he explains how electricity actually works in circuits, and it's nothing like the system taught in schools or colleges. We think that when we attach a battery to an electrical circuit, the battery forces the current through the wire of the circuit. Sorry, Chief, it is actually nothing like that. The power in the circuit comes directly from the zero-point energy field and has very little to do with the battery at all. We tend to think of using up power, but that is just not possible. Energy cannot be destroyed or used up. The most you can do to it is change it from one form to another. It will perform work, power equipment, generate heat, generate cold, when it changes from one form to another. But if you reverse the process and convert it back to its original form, it will perform a lot of work during the conversion and end up back in exactly the same state it started in spite of having performed 2 lots of work during the operation. That's that is a really good point too, that I don't think a lot of people, even myself, realize that when it's converted, then converted back, it's doing twice the amount of work for the same energy.
Yeah, you're doing the work. You give it. Your load is creating a 10 pounds of workload, and it's sending the 10 pounds back to you after you do the work. But you don't use it when it comes back most of the time.
So that's
And
all I have for
your device is usually less than 50% efficient.
right.
And if you were to use the return, you'd have close to 100% efficiency. Maybe more, I don't know. But most motors are not more than 50% efficient, and none of them are reutilizing the return of each forward cycle power.
Yeah,
There's a
I mean,
reverse cycle.
I'm sorry to say, but most of our technology is not made to be efficient.
The standard motor you buy is not wired up like that.
In a car, when you plug to charge your phone, you know, that's energy being released from, I think, like the engine converted into, you know, your into the outlet where you plug into, let's say, charge your cell phone. If you don't charge your cell phone, that energy is being wasted. Otherwise, you could charge your cell phone with it, right? I mean, it's a form of an outlet where that energy that's being cycled could be harnessed, or it could stay in, you know, in that circuit.
Right.
Right. So the grid has a reactive power going on, like it's already got, you know, let's say the grid is powered by a river somewhere, and that river's flowing at, you know, 5 miles an hour, and that 5 miles an hour is transmitted to the entire grid all the time. You don't have to use it,
but it's available.
But it's there, and you can't use more than 5 miles an hour of water flow, but you can use up to that much. And that's pretty much that, you know.
And that's where
the water's still flowing, you know.
You know, energy cavitations are where you can harness energy from them, because you know, it's there if you know, but if you don't need it, yeah.
So just to
the river's still going to flow regardless of whether you use the power or not.
Just to close up, because that's really all I got for this today's presentation. I'd like to finish off this last highlighted part that says, sorry to spoil the illusion, but the battery never did power the circuit itself. It merely acted as channeling device for the zero-point energy field. In passing, direct current is actually not a continuous current at all, but instead it is a stream of DC pulses at an incredibly high frequency, way higher than we can measure at present. The speed of the pulses is so great that it looks continuous to us, but a bit like the individual still pictures we see in the frames of a movie appear to be moving images to us. So I don't know. This is all starting to make sense. It's all starting to come together in my head, starting to paint a picture of how the zero-point energy field works and how it interacts with electronics, how it can be, and I think how pinching off that inflow of the electromagnetic field that's generated by the Rodin coil could actually create an overflow of this radiant energy, and maybe it's just being picked up by the circuitry of the coil. And just creating a little bit more efficiency.
Well, you see the stereo is putting out pulses, you know.
That's true.
To make sound. And, you know, in between those pulses, it turns off the coil, and the coil flies back in the reverse direction.
So that's a good point that I didn't realize. No, that's a very good point.
It's so fast you don't see it, but it's there. And
I think what you were saying about the energy is not coming from the battery is really interesting, because the battery is being used as a rectifier, I think, right? Like a bucket.
And you know what? Because it has 4 ends, I think the flyback can be going in the other coil of the bifilar. That's why you're getting the efficiency you're getting. Because it's going, you're sending power through one of the bifilers, and it's flying back into the other one. It's
Right.
a pair, right?
And yeah, and that makes sense because according to Daniel Nunes, it has to be going forward and backward.
That's so it's right wound that way.
Right, and you know, I thought maybe because it's just using the one channel, it's not using the open circuit method. You're actually putting one tone, the positive, in one channel and the negative in the other, and that's actually creating another reverse counterclockwise motion of energy. But just having the positive and the negative of the stereo hooked up to one channel, channel A, like I have it now. I was thinking, oh, okay, so the geometry of it, you know, the interference pattern itself creates the counterclockwise. So I honestly don't know at this point which one it is that's doing it, but it'd be interesting.
You mean the magnet is spinning counterclockwise?
No, the direction of the wind. So you have one clockwise wind with the same set of wire, and then you kind of bend the wire and then do a counterclockwise wind with the same bit of wire.
But it's in series, the pair.
Yes, it's in series. It's all connected. But you know, you separate those into two channels, obviously. But it's all one bit of wire. It's not separated when you do the bend and the interference pattern for the counterclockwise wind.
And you have two ends at the end.
A bottleneck that, you know, that's still connected to another bottle and another, you know, like it's creating that like bubble, then narrowing, then another bubble, then narrowing, same thing, but it's changing the.
And it's something, it's something to do with the geometry of two counter-rotating fields and placed on top of each other in that way. That creates the effect. So it's like it doesn't matter if there's a bend in the wire, you know, to create the interference pattern with the same set of, you know, with the same string of wire, as long as you maintain the geometry, I guess, you know, because I've got a few bends in my wires. It seems to maybe reduce the efficiency a little bit, probably, I'm assuming, because I measured it with a thermometer the other day, a laser one, and it seemed to be like a degree or two higher on the bends, like the imperfect parts.
Maybe those turns are more resistive to the flow. That's why I like the circular shape.
Yeah, the circular shape of your coil?
I mean, just round in general. I mean, there's no angles for the vibration to, you know.
To stop.
No, not necessarily to stop. You're vibrating the thing, right? So if there's an angle, the vibration might radiate off of the vibrating medium.
Right, the reverberation, but it's not going to lose its, like, I guess, momentum. It's going to be evenly distributed. It's not going to hit a wall and just like bounce off.
You're still going to have the same same voltage flow, right? But you're going to have to use more power to keep that, and that extra power that you used will go off the angle there to keep that flow, because you're still putting the same voltage on the wire. So if there is some resistance in one part of the wire greater than another because of an angle, it will make up for that from the source or whatever. Not technically, there is no source, but the source is acting like a transmitter for the 0 point or whatever. Let's say your battery.
Yeah.
So the 12 volts will go through the wire because the wire is just below the resistance level that 12 volts can push through, and now 12 volts can push through it. If you were too high of resistance, the 12 volts would not be high enough, and absolutely no current will get through, or very little. You can create a resistance so high that it just zeroes out. You don't get any current at all because your voltage is too low. But that's not the case here. So your voltage is high enough and your current's getting through, and your source can provide 500 milliamps and your coil is only drawing 100. But there at the corner there, you're creating a little extra resistance. So now the coil is drawing 101 ohms instead of, I'm sorry, it's drawing 101 milliamps instead of 100 because of that extra bit of resistance at the turn there. Would, like, your 9 ohm coil now becomes 9.1 ohms. You see what I'm saying?
So, yeah, no, that makes
that
sense.
That would increase your milliamp draw.
And again, it goes back to the geometry. You know, you got to have that geometry right and spend time. Like I was reading.
I think anything
said,
less than 90 is a problem.
But I think I don't remember
Like
who
90
it
degrees
was
is good.
that said it, but somebody said spend 6 months designing your device and 10 minutes testing it instead of 10 minutes designing your device and 6 months testing it. And in other words, don't skimp out on the time it takes to take attention to the details of the coil. And that's kind of what my lesson here is don't rush it. The first coil I made was terrible. The second coil I made, the small one, was a lot better, but it was still ineffective. And this is literally the third one that I've tried to make, and I finally got it to
Those
work.
coils are not easy to make.
No, they're not. But with there's a certain method that the Nunez has employed, and with this method, it can take some of the hardship out of it. It's still going to be a little tedious, but it's not going to be impossible, and I guarantee you that. So with that, I'm gonna.
The Rodin coil looks real hard.
It does, but it looks intimidating. That's what I'll say. But if you follow my guide, and I'm gonna put up a video workshop soon, where I'll do hands-on and stuff like that. But if you follow my guide, it's pretty.
You should compare your heat readings to your coil and a standard transformer with the same power supply on it, or load.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Whatever load it takes.
That's a good idea.
Because if you look at a transformer, I mean, it's going to take all the heat into into the iron core.
Yeah, because that in the fuse test.
You don't have a core. You don't have a core.
It's an air core.
Right. So the heat has to go somewhere. And it's going to find it in those turns probably.
Right. Yeah, the bends and imperfections. But that's all I got for today. If I finish my work today, I might go on later and do some work with the actual system. If not, I'll definitely be on tomorrow.
Cool. Now, anytime you want to draw a diagram, I can do that with you online.
Yeah, if I have time later
for any
today,
of your devices.
if I finish some of my work, I'll definitely get back on today, and we can start designing something for the system if you like.
Great stuff.
Yeah. It was great having you guys here.
I know there's diagrams out there for the PoE, but you should make your own anyway.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. But it was great having you guys here. I appreciate it, and like I said, I might be on again later, so I'll talk to you later.
I'll bring up the photo editor. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you in a while.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This was an exciting show. We went over some really interesting stuff, stuff that I think will help me in my own research with the Rodin coil. Like I said earlier, or a moment ago, I might try to be back on later with Mike to try to develop the system further. We'll work on it a little bit. It depends on if I get my work done. So I will see you guys later.